Are you ready for a vacation that will make all your poker buddies jealous? Set sail with Texas Card House for 7 days of sun, fun, and poker on March 26th to April 2nd, 2023. Sailing out of Galveston, Texas, the Royal Caribbean Allure of the Seas is one of the most awarded ships in the world. As you sail for 7 days with Texas Card House with stops in Roatan, Costa Maya, and Cozumel. Sun, fun, and oh yeah, non-stop poker. Texas Card House is bringing their world-class staff on board for 7 days of cash games, tournaments, and no matter your skill level, we've got games for you. Texas Card House Poker Cruise, Royal Caribbean, Allure of the Seas. Cabins are going fast. Don't get left in port and miss the vacation of a lifetime. For full details, visit TexasCardHouse.com. You've been naughty or nice this year? Well, don't worry, we're not checking our list twice this holiday season. Because at Texas Card House, it pays to be playing poker with us. The naughty or nice bad beat is here. Under the tree, you'll find a jackpot starting at $20,000 that rises each day, with the qualifying hand getting easier and easier to beat. No one goes home with a lump of coal. Instead, everyone gets cold hard cash in your stocking. Everyone checked in and playing at any Texas Card House wins $100 when the naughty or nice bad beat hits. Sorry, Auntie May, your fruitcake can't compare to the naughty or nice bad beat. Spend your holiday season with us at Texas Card House and win. The Texas Card House naughty or nice bad beat is here.
Hello, everybody. What's going on? It's TCH Live Thursday. We got ourselves 2-5 No Limit Texas Hold'em game here going on tonight out of Austin, Texas. I'm your host, Aaron McAvoy, and joining me tonight, a guy I've known for quite a while, traveling around on the local Texas tournament circuit, Andrew Vodine. What's going on, Andrew?
What's up, Aaron? Hey, everyone. TCH YouTube.
Heck yeah! So we got a fun little lineup here. We got some usual suspects here from the Austin area, and should be a fun game. A couple of players making a return appearance from last week's stream as well. So really looking forward to seeing the battles in the streets commence here momentarily. We've got 2-5 as I mentioned, so 2K max to start things off, and it'll be match the stack after that. So we'll see these stacks building on up. And we do have some fresh faces out on the table as well, or at least maybe one or two. So we'll see how these players settle in and how things get going here in just a moment. As we got Jeremy in the box. We'll get the cards slung out here for a $10 PLO bomb pot to get things started. Thank you guys for tuning in. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the Texas Hold'em.
I vaped for years and quit a month ago.
All right, so yeah, $10 bomb pot to start things off. What are your feelings about the bomb pots here in Texas, Andrew?
They're wild, especially if it's a PLO bomb pot on a hold'em table. I feel like they're just really profitable if you know what you're doing. A lot of people always, they play one board and they forget that there's another board to play for, so sometimes you even get quartered. Definitely a lot of action that you might not get playing only Hold'em.
Yeah, absolutely. And are you a mostly Hold'em player, or do you get into the PLO streets and stuff as well?
So mainly Hold'em, but there was a month of a downswing, and I was like, you know what, I'll just try some PLO, and it was probably one of the best months I've ever had. I said I would stop when I hit a loss, and I think it was my 14th PLO session when I finally lost, and I was like, okay, I'm good. But
Nice.
yeah, super good run. Was definitely a good month, but mainly Hold'em. I just like the intricacies and the creativity that you get with it. I think PLO is a whole different game and definitely a higher level at the best of it.
Yeah, there's a lot more stuff to take in, that is for sure. Speaking of taking things in, let's go ahead and try to process all the information on the screen here, as we are going to check all the way through to these turn ace of diamonds, 3 of clubs. Looks like Rick here has Broadway and is going to go ahead and lead out for $80, which is a full pot wager. Also working with a couple pairs on the bottom board.
Oh, he took with the pot? Yeah. Oh, well, that wasn't
Mike here is going to make the call, king queen, so he's up and down on bottom with a couple pairs on top. Trying to fill up.
The difference between you and me, Doug.
Deuce of spades, 6 of diamonds does bring in the front door diamonds on bottom. However, nobody playing diamonds. Rick here is just going to scoop this pot if he gets the showdown. Doesn't even have to turn the cards over. As Mike is out of there. All right. New player to the stream here in the 1 seat and on the phone, so we'll have to remind him that that is not allowed. But before we move on to our first hand-up Texas Hold'em, let's take a look here. We got Rick, Doug, Stein, Kevin, Kiki, Brad, Mimo Claus, and of course Mike L. Mimo Claus there in the 1 seat. Shows him in for 200. He's got 300. So we'll have to get that corrected.
So I heard about the thing here. Your nephew made that? Over a year.
All right. So here we go. Cards in the air.
Yeah, it's hard. Like first of all, how to name
All right, $10
Always
straddle
nice,
is
yeah.
on. Not mandatory, at least not so far as I know, but I know that there's a good swath of these players, at least in the middle of the table here, that are going to be putting the $10 straddle on pretty regularly. An open to 35 here. Kiki taking it up with a suited connector. Brad will just make the call from the hijack. And Rick here with the suited jack 8 on the button. Oh no, he's in the small blind. I apologize. He's going to make the call. Now over to Doug with the ace-10 suited. Prime spot for a squeeze here. Let's see if he pounces on it. I suspect he will.
Last week I think it was flu, but I'd had the flu shot. So
a ton of people been saying.
I was probably good for Thursday stream last
And
week.
squeeze it indeed. 190 is the bet here from Doug. Love the sizing. He's out of position, but with a ton of dead money out there, just need to make that price large enough to get the original razor out of the way, and it should be a cascade of folds down the line. But Brad here does have the middling pair, so he's reaching for chips. What are your thoughts about the flat call and then calling the 3-bet, pretty much regardless of your holding?
Yeah, it's not the price that you would be looking for, but at the same time, I probably flat as well just to try to hit that set. Because you know you're going to get paid on it on a lot of face cards with, if you hit that set. Just a pretty bad price to set mine.
Yeah, the one other thing that you do have going for you is when someone raises out of the blind that you are going to have position on them throughout the hand. So you can, even if you don't flop a set, if you do get something like a 5-high, 7-high, 9-high board, something like that, you can definitely stick around for a street or so and try to reevaluate. But this is sort of the tricky part, is that there's only one overcard out here, and you do have some backdoor opportunities, but like, how good do you feel about putting in this call and facing another bet on the turn? Wow, bet at 260, and Brad here is actually going to min-click this to 520 straight away with the pocket 8s.
It's such an interesting line because I do like it because you're going to get those bluffs to fold out. You don't want to see another street of, a bad card. Just really interesting how, obviously, these min-clicks work in cash games.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, it certainly got the job done. Well played there by Brad. You can imagine that if Doug is not on the naked ace high here, that he is going to stuff it with all of his value, and then the pocket 8s are like, oh, oops, But if you can take that pot down with a little min click like that, that is going to feel pretty nice. All right, let's take a look here in the chat, see who all is hanging out with us. We've got Frank, we got Doug, JTM New York, what's going on? Y'all, welcome to the show. Thank you guys for tuning in. All right, Mike here with a beautiful ace-queen suited. He's going to make a small raise up to 25 here. And Stein waking up with the Cowboys straight away. Pop it up to $1.05. Freedom bet. Mike here is called before the camera's even on him, and we'll go heads up to a flop. Jack high, couple diamonds.
I've got 4 grand.
Pretty safe spot here for Stein to continue, and for same wager, 125. Mike not folding yet. He does have 2 overcards backdoor Broadway, but with no spade out there, that is a bit of a dangerous proposition. Is in position, and Stein will slow down on the 6 of diamonds here, and Mike instantly fires out with the ace high.
I'll be drinking it.
200 to go. Stein can't fold yet. Does go for the check call. It's another jack now. This board's super scary for pocket kings, but Mike does not fire the river after setting up what is honestly a pretty good bluff spot there on the end. So check, check, and Stein will win at showdown. I feel like if you're going to bet the ace-queen there after your opponent checks to you, like, yes, when they call, it's kind of like, uh-oh, they got something, right? And then the river comes a jack. I mean, it's certainly plausible that your opponent has just like ace-jack or something and they're not going to fold. But not too sure about betting the turn if you're not going to come through or finish it off with a river bet. What do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting because he obviously flats the lead out on the flop with really no backdoors except overs. I guess he has backdoor broadways, but that's, you know, asking for a long shot. So super interesting when you call that flop and then you lead that turn, because you really think you have to barrel the river unless he just levels himself into thinking that the other person has a flush already and they're just trapping it.
Yeah. Yeah, which I would say, I mean, it's certainly possible. And everyone's going to approach these spots differently. I mean, I think, you know, if I'm not looking at the whole cards here back in the booth, you know, and I'm down there on the table and I've somehow taken Mike's line, I am definitely going to be like, oh, God, am I just like torching my money with a bet here? But at the same time, all of your opponent's hands, you know, aces, kings, queens, pocket tens, right? Like, there's a ton of hands that are going to go bet, flop, check, turn, and then just, or check, call, turn, and then just like absolutely throw up in their mouth when you put in a big, you know, 3/4 pot size bet on the river.
Right. Especially
So,
with that check call on the river, or the check, yeah, check on the river. It definitely screams like he's just trying to get to showdown.
yeah, so you can put a lot of those hands into a tough spot, and your hand is like pretty much one of the worst that you're ever going to have, even though it is a strong ace high. You just are going to have a lot of, you know, middling strength hands and then just actually good hands. So plenty of times you're going to go for value. All right, Stein has flopped the toppest of pairs with the toppest of kickers. Rick has squadouche, but
This is interesting. There's a 3-bet pot, and he called the 3-bet with 6 deuce.
yeah, pretty spicy here from Rick. As so fun little, you know, backstory here on Rick is that he played this stream last Thursday. He's played from time to time, relative regular. But he is generally more known as sort of a snug player, doesn't get out of line too often. He ran about like 8 bluffs last stream and got, I think, virtually all of them through, if not all of them through. And so I feel like he has some like real BDE going on here, you know, just like after swinging and winning just every time last week, coming in, you know, opening and then calling the 3-bet with the 6 deuce. I wonder if we're going to see that all night long, or if he is going to sort of, you know, go back to the usual.
He gets rewarded for it right here. Definitely opening up the range and balancing it.
Some cards we can play here in a little while. We get some cards here in a little while we can play. What pizza did you get? Is that just sauce?
I think as you were talking about it, it just happens that last week he had 8 bluffs and now he actually has a hand. After just calling the 3-bet with 6 deuce, he actually has queens now, and then Doug 3-bets him to 160. Does he want a 4-bet here, which is flat, and then play it slow?
Yeah, I think you can definitely go both ways. Rick here, with the orientation, I think that the 3-bet is a pretty good spot. Sorry, the 4th bet, because, you know, it's hijack versus cutoff. There's going to be some leveling wars going on there, and queens are definitely going to be strong enough to just get all the chips in the middle pre-flop if need be. doesn't even have to take it to the flop as Doug gets out of the way. Back to the chat as we've got a bunch of new people joining us. Our Actuary, what's going on? We got Pumbaa Danny, what's happening? Kicker Problems, welcome.
When is the launch close?
I'll tell you.
Watch it on TV.
Yeah. He's a movie star.
All right, no straddle this hand, so we're just playing for $5. Mike says, $5, I can do that. So he'll limp. Rick also going to limp. Over to Kevin here in the small blind. He'll complete, and Kiki will check his option. 4 players to a flop. And what a flop it is for Rick.
I was gonna ask you, what do you think about limping hands like this, suited connectors?
I think in cash games when you're so deep that the limping is pretty much out of the question. The times that I find myself ever limping in a cash game is if I have a just completely disconnected suited hand or a connected offsuit hand that I'm just like never playing otherwise, and I'm on the button. And if it's just like limp, 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 and I look down at like 6-7 off, like,
Right.
okay, like every once in a while I'll just limp that.
And it's sick that he just hits it.
Yeah, tough spot here for Kiki as he improves to the 8 high straight. Is going to feel pretty good about this. Kevin is in the mix as well with the trip 5s. I mean, there is some serious damage to be done here by Rick. 260 in the middle. It's a bet of 150 and a call. Now over to Kevin, and he is sort of visibly confused about what his opponents could have. This board is pretty connected, so he's right to be concerned. Does just make the call. It's another 8.
Wow.
And here we go. Rick is going to get counterfeit and chop this pot with Kevin. If and when we get to showdown, Kiki here can't really believe what's just happened, but this is honestly the best case scenario for him as he was already dead.
He'll be very happy to see the results when
but
he goes to showdown.
He's lining up what... Oh, I thought he was about to bet. I was like, I don't recommend that. So check over to Rick, and yeah, I mean, when people are checking, you've got a full house. I mean, pretty unlikely that you're beat. Kevin's got to be saying about the same thing to himself here. He's like, how do I lose? He is going to line up a call here before he puts in a check raise with the 5s full. This is ambitious.
This really is an interesting spot because I feel like they're definitely capped to only having, 5s full, because there shouldn't really be any 8s, obviously, that floated that flop, but then again, could be a weird gutter ball, and then so now I think Rick's in a really tough spot because this check raise is always, 8s full, or it should never be a bluff, but...
Yeah, definitely not a bluff. The question now is, like, do I just chop, or am I getting owned for 500 here by any random 8? Rick, though, not going to back down, and while Kevin here did go for the spicy check raise to potentially push his opponent off of the chop, Rick will not be outplayed and does make the call. So hack it up, and both players going to win just shy of $100 after 2,000 goes into the middle.
Yeah, it'd be cool if that worked, because Rick should be capped to, only having a 5 and never having the 8 there, so... yeah, if that worked, that would have been pretty sick raise.
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit dangerous for Kevin to reopen the betting, right? Like, I mean, so I agree with you that your opponent is mostly capped to a 5. But there's still plenty of 8s out there that can connect with the board enough that you might, sort of squint at a little bit and be like, I don't know, like, maybe I just call, right? Just
right.
Don't build this pot anymore. Don't reopen the action. He's probably not bluffing, so just take the chop as it is. But I do appreciate the effort there. That's for sure. All right, homie in the 1 seat is still on the top. Yeah, he's just constantly on the top.
We shall dance again.
All right, here we go. Single raise pot. Rick raising to 25 from +2. Rick versus Brad. Brad just calling out of the big blind here. This is
5, 10, 9, all hearts.
pretty strong hand to just flat from the big blind. Nice to have those in there every once in a while. However, he is against a pretty early position raiser as well, so not the worst thing. Brad gonna check it over. Rick will c-bet for 35, and Brad will make the call.
Freaking good.
You got a great swing.
2 overs and queen of hearts. Rick's hand is not scanned in.
Charlie, when
Good
he
4 of clubs here now on the turn.
he gets to be
Pretty
6.
safe card
Kind of touched this logo, but that was
for any value hands that did bet the flop.
Well, I didn't watch the match last
2
weekend,
bets,
but
80.
Tiger apparently stuck it up.
I think we're just waiting on the action to get caught up here. I presume that Brad has checked, but I guess. Yeah. Check, bet 80, and call. Still heads up, going to the river.
Friday's a pro am. I was looking at that this morning, yeah. It's just
Another 10.
I'm surprised
No
to see
heart.
team speed. His dad's obviously pretty good.
Brad here unblocking
JT, his dad's real.
Jack 8s of the world.
bets 170.
Does interact with Queen Jacks of the world. And wow, he's just going to go ahead and lead out here. Bet 175 with a hand that is actually just going to be good some of the time. The real danger here is that as the top card has paired, his opponent could actually just be sitting on trips over here and have a very easy call. Rick here does indeed make the call. Brad will show down the ace high, and Rick over there
Queen, ace of diamonds, queen.
seemingly showing a winner as Brad sort of nods in approval.
Ace of clubs, 5 of spades.
Ace of clubs, 5 of spades. So Rick here making the call with just the pair of 5s, recognizing that Brad here is probably up to no good. Wow, nice call there from Rick.
He's new. He'll get it in a minute.
Interesting hand, betting 2 streets with the 5 as well, then also heroing the river.
I just think that's a really safe river card for you to make a hero call there. It's just,
Straddle for 10.
yeah, it's interesting. Check, call, and then he leads out. Whereas that, like you said, that hand would just rather go to showdown, and if bet into, you just fold it.
Yeah, but I mean, the same could be said about the ace-5 just wanting to get to
Right,
showdown, right?
of
You've got
course.
bottom pair, and you on a monotone flop. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm not betting that spot. But you know, everybody's got a different approach. That's for sure. Pardon me. All right, hand number 8 here. We got the $10 straddle on. It's going to be an open to 35 after Rick just makes the flat up front.
Like someone opened and like he's facing a 2-bet and he tanks for like a
Couple of callers in between. Back over to Rick. He'll make the call as well. So 4 players to a flop.
Let's go.
Comes ace high. Top pair for Mimo. Second pair for Kevin. A whole lot of not much here for Rick and Brad.
The heck up.
Mimo just going to lead straight out at this rather than check to
I guess. Apparently. Hey,
pre-flop razor.
Do you think it's appropriate donk leading with your top pairs in these spots if you're not the pre-flop aggressor?
So, I mean, you can make a justification for donking in a variety of spots, but certainly in a multi-way pots,
1 bets 120.
I don't really think there's a lot of good rationale for it. Just because, I mean, like, your opponent is, not only is there the original razor just going to have a range advantage against you when you have the ace-9 there, I'll just hone in on this spot in particular because it's right here. When you lead out, like, you sort of allow your opponents to play pretty perfectly against you. Like, if they have a better ace, like, they're just never folding, and so you've done their job for them, just built the pot. They may even raise you, right, with, like, ace king, ace queen, something like that. They may just raise you straight out. Flopped sets can be in there from all the other players that have just made the call. There's 2 pairs abundant, right? There's just so many different hands that are going to continue and potentially in an aggressive manner against you that putting your money out there first and then having to watch all the action unfold behind you is just really pretty dangerous. Whereas with a hand like ace-9 on that board, like, you can very easily check and call pretty much any bet unless it goes like bet, re-raise in front. So I don't know. It's just one of those things where most of the time I think you take a more cautious approach out of position rather than you just sort of lighting your own on fire.
Right, you could just be value owning yourself in a lot of spots.
Yeah, I mean, you just also don't accomplish that much, right? Like, if you if
fold
you get a
bluffs
bunch
out.
of other hands to fold, like, and you win the pot, like, are you happy? Sure, on some level, but imagine if you check it over to the guy who raised pre and has queen jack and just, like, c-bets, and you check call, and then somehow win the pot with that extra bet, maybe even another one on the river when you hit the aces up, or a number of different ways that that you win that hand with more money in the pot. So. Anyways, here we go. Heads up between these 2 players. Mimo is all in. Check raising all in after Kiki c-bets with the 2 overcards and 3 to a straight there. Kiki just trying to sort of bet and take it down, but Mimo.
Very interesting line. Mimo 3-bet pre-flop in that hand, and then he check flop and decides to check raise jam.
Yeah.
Very interesting line.
It is interesting. It's also, it's always curious to me when players come in short stacked, like what their strategy is going to be and how they're going to work the short stack to their advantage. Because it's something that we don't see a ton of, especially here in Texas. Most of the cash games around here are just super deep stacked. People preferring to buy in for, you know, well over 100 blinds most of the time. And so you'll end up seeing more like unique scenarios that other players around the country or the world don't really see. But because it's the opposite direction, it's like, oh, well, how often are you in a 400 big blind deep spot like this? This is crazy. Instead, you know, you have this kind of microcosm of, like, all of a sudden now there's this dude that has like 50 big blinds, or, you know, started with 300. So when the $10 straddle's out there, he's got 30 big blinds, right? Like, he's going to be shipping that in a lot. And then all of a sudden, like, all of your middling strength hands would be happy to continue for normal c-bets. You're just like, oh, wait, like, this dude's just going to be all in. Like, what do I do now? So it's interesting. We'll see how he continues to play it. Although now he's up over 600, so he's got a reasonable stack.
Already opening it up, flatting with the 9-5. I think it was raised pre-flop too.
Yeah, pretty ambitious from the small blind. Queen high flop here. A couple of hearts out there for Doug. No pairs for anyone other than Optimize, who's flopped second pair. He's going to fire out about a 75. Doug makes the call. We're down a heads up. Bingo, there's the gutty for Doug as well. So flopping the flush draw and the gut shot comes in on the turn. And that is actually the best card for him to improve his hand, as obviously the heart would make it a little bit more dangerous for Optimize to continue. Doug here smashes the bet button for overbet size on the end, and yeah, even a queen is going to be in a tough spot there. I think polarizing a little bit much there is Doug to get himself paid off, and indeed Blake will get away from the pair of sevens. Mo the Cat here in the chat has an observation. He says, most players are terrified of monotone flops. High stakes, low stakes makes no difference. Seize the moment. Bet 1/3 pot, take it down. So that is definitely true. Monotone flops are pretty scary because even the best made hands that are not a flush are always going to be worried about the flush. So that is definitely true. Seize the moment, bet 1/3 pot, says Mo. In fact, the solver in a lot of instances will bet even smaller, sometimes 1/5 to a quarter pot, just because it is such a scary board and it's so difficult for your opponents to have something that is going to be willing to continue when you size up on the turn. So you bet that little tickle, and then if they do stick around, hammer them with a 3/4 full pot size bet on the turn, and that'll usually get them to tuck tail and run at that point unless they are near the top of range. All right, here we go. 3 players to a flop now. All suited hands battling it out, and it comes 3 diamonds.
Such a different game today. I just want to watch.
And what's really crazy is how
Bottom 2 for Kiki out in front at the moment.
Well, kind of.
a soccer goal.
Optimize not shy about c-betting here. D5 to go.
He knew nothing about nothing.
Kiki, of course, will make the call. Stein is out of the way. I think that's wise. Bottom pair. Yes, you've got a gut shot, but could already be drawing dead.
You know what's
Or
interesting?
nearly. Optimize will slow it down with a check on the 3 of diamonds turn. Kiki checks it back, and what do you know? Runs out a 4-liner to a royal.
And one other.
And they're just going to chop it up.
You check it? No.
Optimize will get the extra $1 because he does have a straight.
Just
kidding. Out of position, so he gets the extra $1.
Do you think it's ever worth bluffing in position in that spot to try to take down, you know, almost 100 profit there?
Sure. I mean, I certainly don't think that that betting is a terrible idea. Anytime your opponent has shown a couple streets of passivity like that. So yeah, I think there's plenty of those spots where it kind of becomes obvious that both players, or at least the player that's out of position that has checked twice, it's pretty obvious that they don't have a hand that they're like willing to die on a hill with.
Right. And you'd have to
Whether
go
or
big,
not
right?
you need to attack that spot every time is certainly up for debate. I think it's perfectly fine to check down in some spots and just be happy to chop.
Right.
Because, you know, anytime you're in position and you do bet trying to sort of steal the pot, if you're up against tough battling opponents, they are going to have some check raises. And if they think that you're just trying to steal it away from them too, that you're not actually betting for value, like let's say that on the end the Kiki bets like 3/4 pot. Like, then Blake can ask himself, like, wait a minute, would he ever bet 3/4 pot with the ace of diamonds, like, to have the royal? Like, that's too big. Like, all of my other, like, small diamonds are just going to be like, ew, like, this is scary, and probably fold, right? So it's like, you kind of, if you're going to bluff, you almost have to pick, like, this really tiny little, like, oh, please call me, I have a royal flush, or even the 9 of diamonds for the bottom end of the straight flush. Like, please call me with anything.
He ain't got a donk lead.
And so you have to be pretty selective about how to attack those spots, and if you even attack them, in my opinion.
With 7 of clubs.
All right, looking at the earnings there, Stein up the most, Rick hot on his heels. Both players up just about 500. Mike L and Doug here, as well as Kiki, all stuck about 500 in their own right. Pumbaa Danny here in the chat wants to know, what do we use the points towards? Well, mostly we just bet with them to have fun. Every once in a while, we do some merch giveaways, and you can enter into a drawing with those points. But yeah, for the most part, it's just for fun.
There you go.
6 raises to 40.
All right, the $10 straddle is on. We've got a raise to 40 here from Kevin. Kiki will make the call.
55.
6 bets, 55, 7 bets.
Quick bet here from Kevin, and he'll take it down.
7 something.
For what? Seattle and who?
So you more of a tournament player,
God, how
cash game player? What where'd you get your roots, and what do you consider yourself now?
I would consider myself a better cash player, but I love tournaments more in the study and the game of it. You know, they're just such different games, even though it's Texas Hold'em at the end of the day. But Yeah, I really do love the strategy and everything that goes into tournament spots. A lot of it is just, the mechanics and kind of the motion, going through the motions, but it's just so much more different than cash. Whereas cash, you get to be a bit more creative and stuff. I think that's where I'm most profitable, just because it's much easier to read people, and that's where people tend to make mistakes a lot more often. But I think the strategy within tournaments is just so much more fun, and I grew up playing a lot of strategy games in general, and that's probably why I like tournaments more.
Yeah, nice. I definitely agree with that sentiment. I feel very similarly. I'll come back to that in a moment as we've got 4 players to a flop. Jack high, 2 tone. Doug and Stein working with pocket pairs. Rick here flopping bottom pair, backdoor wheel and flush opportunities. Gonna check all the way through. 8 of hearts now on the turn. Does complete the front door flush, but Doug turns a set. Nobody even has a heart, so everyone is actually drawing dead at this point. Rick here going to take a stab with the bottom pair and all reds. Makes it 80 to go. And Doug will come in for a raise here, 3x to 240.
It really is an interesting raise when you're going to fold out a lot of your opponent's bluffs, and then obviously get better to call when that third heart front door flush hits. So obviously he's trying to build the pot when he hits his set, but definitely a dangerous situation to be in.
Yeah, multi-way for sure. I think if you're heads up, betting and raising on front door flush completing cards is very much going to be something you're going to want to do, just because, like you said, you need to build the pot. You're basically at the top of range here, and or very near the top of range, and so building the pot is going to be to your benefit. But yeah, multi-way, it is always a little bit sketchy. I mean, it checked through on the flop, so you think, okay, there's a decent chance that people are going to bet their flush draws when check to, so, maybe it's less likely that there are very many flushes out there. And, of course, if you bet and get raised, you can always call hoping to hit your full house on the river. So I don't hate it, but I definitely agree with you that you can find yourself in some sticky spots by doing so. But yeah, so yeah, the difference between cash and tournaments is so so interesting. It's like you say though, that like cash games can be very profitable. Like people playing hundreds of big blinds deep and making mistakes. It's much easier to exploit someone who makes fundamental errors at 300 big blinds deep than someone who will make those same errors, but they only have 15 or 20 big blinds. Like, they just won't have the opportunities to make those mistakes because it's just like, oh, I have 15 or 20 bigs, like I'm just all in. And so you cut down on the number of decisions, the number of points in the tree that you can attack them and sort of, get extra EV out of them. But at the same time, being able to navigate the different spots when you are, on 25 or 30 big blinds or, 40 or 50 big blinds, and how you adjust your play and what you should be doing in the various spots is indeed what makes tournaments so exciting. And of course, just the prospect of making, like a 6-figure payday by shipping one of those. You're never going to do that in a cash game unless you're playing
going for glory.
My weight class.
I think that's also what it is, going for glory, going for that bracelet or belt, whatever it might be, trophy. It's always a good feeling.
Oh yeah, getting to a final table, like there's no cash game or no amount of success you can have in a cash game that will make you feel the same as going to a final table with real, like, life-changing payouts on the line.
Unless you're just really playing out of your bankroll for cash.
Yeah, which, is not recommended anyways. All right, so 3 players to a flop here. Mimo, Claus, and Mike. As well as Kevin, all with a 10, all up and down.
All with the 10. And it doesn't show, but Mimo actually opened from under the gun +1 to 20. And then got flatted by the button under the gun, so he's the initial pre-flop raiser.
Curious. Slowing it down with some checks over to Kevin this time. Bet of 130.
This will be a super sick spot if it gets to showdown and no one has anything except their high card.
All right, the 10-4 hits the muck. And here we go. It's a 10 on the river. Mike here with the ace kicking.
Check.
Kevin here, yeah, going to be happy to take his showdown. He's like, oh, I've just made a pair. I might be go. No, I'm not good. So case 10 comes out on the end, and Mike will take it down with the kicker. 550 bucks in that pot. Juicy.
I'm the guy that's always rooting for some blood, blank card on the river, and see what people decide to create on the river, what they want to do and bluff, if they do decide to bluff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, having a 10, you obviously always have the opportunity to represent the whatever it was, the 10-6 or the 10-7 there, some shit, if you feel like it.
Open ender.
You're majority tournament player, right?
I mean, I play a lot of cash now, but my background, sort of how I got into the game, was always was tournaments. Really had to teach myself how to play cash games. I mean, now looking back at it, I realized just how bad I was at tournaments anyways, but like the fact that, you know, the first games that I played when I got into poker were tournaments. And yeah, it's just such a different game when the blinds are constantly going up. You're constantly under pressure. Like, you go through the blinds and you're like, oh man, that hurt, you know, like got to double up at some point, versus a cash game where it's just, I mean, every hand from now until the end of time is just the same. It just doesn't matter.
Right.
Like nothing really changes, unless of course, like, you know, at the end of a long session, everybody at the table is super deep, and, you know, maybe people having a few drinks and things just get a little bit off the rails. But aside from the mostly interpersonal dynamics and the depth of stack, it's just every hand's the same. And tournaments, of course, you know, payouts and bubbles and ladder ups and all that stuff is just so much more exciting. All right, Kiki here, suited king queen, going to raise us up to 40 bucks, and Rick will not abandon his straddle so easily. He will make the call, and Doug will follow suit. So 3 players to a flop.
Well, I got counted. I got 7. My cousin and her 5 kids.
2 10s and a jack on board. Rick up and down on the bottom side. Kiki up and down on the top end. And Doug here with the best hand, ace high and backdoor clubs. Checks through to another jack. And Rick here with just 9 high. He's like, yeah, I could probably bet at this and win.
Very small people may die in the event of attack.
Let's put 85 out there, and Kiki not going anywhere. He could just be literally drawing dead, but he does make the call and actually has the best hand with king high. But if Rick bets one more time, he is going to take this down. And yeah, after last stream and recognizing the power of aggression and just continuing to put chips in the middle to win pots, Rick is going to do it again and gets away with yet another one. He's
Would you
had
have
a pretty
preferred-
good knack for finding himself in these positions where it's like, just keep betting, question mark, like, throw, you know, kind of a shrug, and just gets it through because his opponent just is always on like a brick draw or something. So he's been quite fortunate that it's not just like,
Right.
oh, I just bluff everywhere and like, oh, it gets snapped off and snapped off and snapped off. Like,
He just has the
You
read.
can do one now.
Yeah.
It's been 30 minutes.
Oh, well, what are we waiting for?
all right, $10 straddle is on. Kevin here going to get a little bit frisky with the 980.
7, 8, 9 folds. 1 fold. Y'all really want to do it?
Absolutely.
Rick here, little slick, the dirtiest of diapers. Oh, he's not going to make a call. Thought he was convincing himself to get in the mix again. But Doug will do the defending, and here we go, heads up to the flop.
Roger that.
Pretty innocuous board here. Kevin just starts reaching for chips, and Doug snap mops.
Yeah, reach for chips.
We're gonna bomb it up.
Bomb
And
I'm always
we'll
at
move
a
on to hand number
crossroads
20.
with spots like that.
Once again,
where
at the earnings. Rick and Stein still up 500 plus. Kiki stuck the mark of the devil. And
C2 says he's sitting
yeah,
down.
no real damage done here so far in the first 20 hands.
So basically, we just tell her what we want to do. Is that how
What's your experience with playing on the live stream?
TCH Austin was actually my first time playing a live stream. I think it was 2-3 years ago, right before or right when COVID had started, I believe it was. The first time I played, I was definitely not rolled for it. I think I bought in 500 and I had to use ATM the second time. But it was pretty deep to what I think the 1-3 used to be. Chaz was actually on, I think, to my left or 2 to my left, so that just shows how deep that game was for a 1-3. But yeah, I love live streams. I love looking back at hand histories, seeing if I played as optimally as I could. And yeah, it's just a really good experience. I think anyone that ever wants to do it should, try to do it, get yourself on the list. It's just a really good experience in general.
Heck yeah. All right, Mimo Claus going to flop a set despite having 3 8s in hand. Going to lead out for 40 bucks. Everybody folds except for Kevin, who is on top and bottom pair on the bottom board. Does have the pair of queens on top, improves to a gut shot to Broadway as well, but the jack comes on the bottom board instead of the top, and we are going to chop this pot if we get to showdown. Mimo Claus checking once again, as yeah, his hand is not improved. Kevin will be happy to check behind. He's like, I've got some pairs, question mark, and sure enough, those are good, and they'll hack it up.
Very unexciting.
Do you have some fun promotions going on here at TCH Austin all through the month of December? You get dealt not just 3 8s in hand, but all 4 8s, or any 4 of anything in your hand while playing Pot Limit Omaha, whether it's a bomb pot or just regular. You get yourself 400 bucks. That's a fun little sweat. You know, you look down at a really crappy hand, all 4 3s in your hand or something. You're gonna get 400 bucks here at TCH Austin. Also have a couple other things going on. We do have our Bad Beat Jackpot back in action. If you were tuned in at the beginning of the show, you got to see the little promotional video for that. But yeah, it's up over $30,000 right now. Do you have to lose with 4 of a kind to a straight flush at the moment? I don't remember exactly what.
I believe
4 of a
it's
kind it is
jacks.
at the
I think
moment,
it's jacks.
Jacks, that sounds about right. Quad jacks losing to a straight flush. And the qualifying hand will continue to go down each and every day, though. So tomorrow will be quad 10s, then quad 9s, etc. Once we get down to quad deuces beaten by a straight flush and it goes down once again, then it'll be aces full of kings beaten by quads or better. So the dramatic drop-off in the difficulty for hitting that. And if you're checked in at any TCH location around the state of Texas, when the bad beat is hit, no matter where that bad beat is hit, you will get yourself 100 bucks. So all you got to do is play at TCH and get in on the action.
Have you ever had quads in your hand in PLO?
Oh, I absolutely have. It's a pretty rare feat, low probability event, but I have had it happen. And unfortunately, when I've had it happen, there was no $400 promotion going, so I didn't get.
Yeah, that's a pretty nifty promo.
First day we ran it, 2 people hit it here in Austin, I believe.
Oh, that's super
Yeah,
sick.
like super low probability, and it was just like, oh, I have quads. Ooh, spicy spot
Wow.
incoming. Mimo Claus on the relatively short stack here, $10 blind. Is going to raise it up to 40 with a couple of queens. Doug with red cowboys in the small blind. Going to squeeze this up to 160. I presume Mike will be out of the way. He is, and now Mimo Claus. Does he just stuff it all in the middle here, or call and play in position?
I think this is one of those spots where we were talking about where when you're playing so short, it's kind of awkward because if you flat, you don't leave yourself much behind. And your only option really is to jam or fold. Yeah, which he does do.
Mimo instantly asks Doug after the snap call, aces or kings, and Doug shakes his head to the affirmative.
Kings versus quinkies.
Mimo Claus in a very tough position here. Going to need to find a queen or some sort of sick, nasty run out.
Oh, sorry.
It's down to a queen and a queen only.
Leave them hanging on the river.
And it's not to be.
Thank you.
As Doug here, Cooler City is going to stack
Hold up, good
Mimo.
hand there.
These coolers, man, they crop up from time to time, you know? You feel like, oh, this is the time. This is where we win all the, oh, no. He's got one of the two hands that beats me.
Right.
Three.
You look down at queens and you see the 3-bet and you're ecstatic until he snaps you off on your 4-bet.
But Mimo will not be taken off. He's going to reload for what looks to be $400. No, seven. It says 700. Okay.
You're watching all eat pizza.
Yeah, you got it.
Help yourself.
Sausage and mushrooms and shit like that.
It's just sausage only.
That's good stuff.
All right, $10 straddle
I like
is
it how they
on.
crumble their sausage up.
Yes, yeah,
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Kiki here, loading up with the breath mints or the chewing gum, or
It's a
he
little limpy, but that's all
looks
right.
at his card.
With cold beer, it works good. So then you crush red peppers around?
Brad here,
Maybe some over there.
Queen of Clubs, in a mystery card. He'll raise it up to 35. Card's not scanning in so good. Worth it, but, Stein, not a believer in the 9 Triz.
I'll give you some action.
King Jack also hitting the muck. I feel like we've got a little bit of some card read error going on here potentially, but Kevin presumably does have the ace deuce off and flops top and bottom pair here. Pretty juicy spot for him. Natural check over to Brad, who will bet 50. Just a check call here from Kevin, and another deuce on the turn fills up Kevin. Check, check now.
You gave up the lead, huh?
I love that. Did you hear Kevin when he called? I'm going to give him action and he just spike, you know, aces up and then turn boat.
Pretty nice. Yeah, I think that was pretty well played there by Kevin. Ace 8 deuce, you're just really not ever going to have any check raises that aren't just like pocket deuces and pocket 8s. And even those are like sort of incentivized to not check raise just because you just don't have any good check raise bluff candidates. Like, what are you going to check raise bluff on ace 8 deuce rainbow? Right? So you get the top pair, the top pair, the bottom pair. Just go for the check call. Hope your opponent does indeed just like keep betting with either a bluff or a made hand. You can try to check raise them later on. But yeah, that Queen of Clubs must just be paired with like a jack or something. And no more monies for Kevin.
You gotta win by 2, right?
Yeah. It says they played at 25, but they would have been open.
All right, Rick will make it 35 to go after Brad limps up front. Everybody else out of the way, but Brad does complete. And he flops best, stays ahead with the 6s. And Rick not going to fire at this, so Rick going to wait till the turn when he just has the best hand, and then he can bet for value.
Did you park in this?
Another one of those reach for chips and have your opponent just muck their hand situation. Do you ever do that, or do you always just wait and make them actually assemble the full bet?
I'd rather just angle them and then, you know, grab a full stack of blacks or something and then fold. But yeah, I rarely do that. I'd rather, you know, make them reach for it and put in the effort, and then I'll muck my hand. I try to keep myself standard, you know, keep all your mannerisms the same. I sometimes forget to do that, but as I've grown over the years, I try to keep everything the same with how long I tank, how long I take the fold, and the other things like that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, maybe the taking time to fold or whatever, I'm a little loosey goosey with, because it's like if you're just folding, like, just fold. But as far as like, I mean, certainly pre-flop anyways, or facing some real aggression. But yeah, it's like to those players out there that are prone to just like folding as soon as you start reaching for chips, like you can literally just be like fully prepared to check, but just reach for your chips and then just like start shuffling them or whatever. But like just reach for your chips, and if they just muck, like you just win the hand, and if they don't muck, then you can check.
Yeah, I
So,
think there was
yeah, you
actually
don't
one
want to be
time
one of
this
the
year I
people
did that. I reached
people
for
do that.
chips to shuffle, and then someone actually just mucked, and I was like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Absolutely. Why not?
It's a hell of a game.
You got some NFL football starting here in just about 20 minutes. You play fantasy football or anything?
I don't play fantasy. I followed a lot of the Texans when we had, J.J. Watt and we were doing well. But
Look at the size of that.
as someone that just cares about his hometown sports, aside from maybe basketball, I watch almost every game for basketball. Not too much into fantasy, but yeah, I wish the Texans were better.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, I think they've got some core pieces that are decent. As to whether or not they can build around that and get into contention next year is a pretty big question mark. But Dameon Pierce, obviously a really talented young rookie. I think he's going to be a really good running back for them for years to come. But whether or not they can actually assemble a defense that isn't just a sieve, and then try to build around Brandon Cooks, and what they do have on offense is kind of a big question mark. A couple of players with real hands here. Top pair top kicker, top pair second kicker, and Mike here on the front door heart flush draw. So all three of these players should be putting chips in on the flop and later.
One of my favorite pieces that we continue to do is the Primavera.
Raina asking, did they say why this was pre-recorded? I'm not sure if I just missed something in the chat, but this game is not pre-recorded. This is live and occurring exactly as we speak.
So good. The flavor is crazy.
Okay, looks like a bet, a call, and a raise here. Mimo Claus taking it up to 210 after Rick's initial open, or rather bet with. So Mimo going for the check raise once again here. Interesting. Rick is going to re-raise. He's going to make this 500. He's like, if you've got a flush draw, like, let's just put all the money in. And Mike here is the one with the flush draw. Now he has to make a decision. Does he pretty much want to play for all of it? I mean, you don't see 3-bets on the flop too often. And when they do happen multi-way, it's usually just like a clash of real hands.
Wow, and he flaps.
Mike going to call the 3-bet.
This is a spot if you 3-bet as Mimo, you're just going to get it in a lot of the time, right? Unless you just think you're beat somehow.
Well, so Mike here just calling has pretty well announced that he does not have a set or better.
Right.
Because if he did, even 2-pair, honestly, like King 5 of clubs or something is just like, F it, put it all in, right? So I think Mimo here, I mean, depending on, I mean, I think this is the only option is to just stuff it. You've got one player that could just have you dead to rights, and that is Rick. Mike is just almost always on some sort of draw.
He said his first check raise, initial check raise was interesting. Is that, would you flat there a lot of the times, or would you do the same or choose a different sizing?
Oh, no, if you're going to go for the check raise, then absolutely. Or like if you're going to go for a check with the top, then the check raise is mandatory. So I think that that's well played by Mimo in that case. He was also trying to leave himself just enough chips behind, I suppose, to, have a jam on the turn. And that just kind of got taken away from him by the re-raise. But yeah, I mean, we're just gonna pile all the chips in here as Mimo goes all in. Rick makes the call. Mike makes the call. And now we're checking between Mike and Rick, getting to a free river card. It's
Oh,
just gonna
wow.
come
It's
running
clean.
black tens.
That's good feeling when it comes clean like that.
So no more chips go into the middle. Rick won't get a rebate off of Mike L, which, I mean, I guess it's kind of understandable. If you're Rick, you're like, we already got to beat this guy to get what's in the middle. But at the same time, if you thought your hand was good enough to get to that point, and now Mike is just like this other dude that's in the hand, like what the hell does he have? He probably is on the flush draw. You could get extra value from that by putting him all in on the turn.
Yeah, I completely agree that the
Or even
pot was
denying
already
his equity if you're somehow ahead of Nemo. I'm not
Yeah.
sure there. It's just always tricky to navigate these big spots, especially when like the main pot is like already made and you're gonna have to show down to win it. But like
Yeah.
the impetus is really on you with the made hand to try to get any little bit of extra value that you can.
Yeah, I agree. It's just like looking at it, we see the cards, but maybe it's because my tendencies I act quickly. I might have just checked the showdown the same thing because we have to beat the one person all in. But looking at it, taking a step back, I think I would completely agree that he never has two pairs or sets because he's just getting it anyway. So with the pot being almost $2,000, you can get the other $600 in if he's on a flush draw and charge him and maybe get that rebate back.
Yeah, I mean, like, the only thought behind just, like, checking to get to showdown is if your opponent somehow just, like, 5-3 and was a little bit scared. And, like, you just don't want to put any more money in because you lose to that. But it's like, how is this dude ever going to have that? And why wouldn't he have just shoved it all in pre, right? Like, all of these things are just questions that have real, tangible answers if you just think them through. All right, Mike is going to ship it. Pocket eight. Gets out of the way.
Shit, he had eights as well. Oh, wow.
Doug folds pocket eights. So, yeah. Mike's eights were bigger, stronger, faster, and they won.
$600. If he has ace queen.
All right, Mimo claws here. Up over 1,000 after getting felted just a moment ago.
No, that's what he said to me.
Buying in, rebuying for 700, and then getting basically a triple up.
I take it all back, dude. I saw you open
Or
9,
just
6
actually a
suited.
triple up on that last hand. Pretty fantastic spot when you've gone down to the belt
Dear
once.
dog, I wasn't under the gun either.
I think it would be super interesting too if he was deeper in that situation.
Under the gun, I was strapped.
If the same sizings would have happened as well, because seeing a raise to 500 when you have like 1.5 behind is still pretty nerve-wracking.
All right, more premium hands crashing into each other here. Optimize has been relatively quiet, but he does wake up with the queens. Facing an early position open here from Doug. Gives him the 3x 3-bet, and now Doug comes in with a 4th bet. This is a little bit sketchy. I'm not saying that I'm not doing this with ace-king ever, but at the same time, like, I've opened under the gun, and now +2 is raising. Do I really want to 4-bet that range that's already strong because my range is already strong? Now, ace-king of all the hands that you're going to, sort of re-raise with makes the most sense because you block aces and kings, but yeah, I think there's definitely some room there to mix the ace-king into a flatting range on occasion. Doug does not continue in a 4-bet pot on a 6-high board and just check folds. Yeah, even more reason to not go for the 4th bet if that's how you're going to play a 6-high flop.
Squeeze me out of there with your dog.
I mean, your range is super strong. 4-betting range from under the gun and you just check fold? Whew. I'm not too sure about that one.
Yeah, I agree. You need to just lead there if you're 4-bet, otherwise just flat, and then you can check fold. Save a lot more money that way.
I mean, let's assume that Doug puts his opponent on, like, queens or jacks, right? Like, let's just say that Blake turns his hand over and he knows he's up against queens. He has the 4-bet pre-betting advantage he could just bet 1/4 pot, and Blake is probably just going to call. He can see a turn card for a very small price, and he's got 6 outs, 6 immediate outs to improve his hand. Like,
That's definitely something I've learned over, I think, the past 2 years of playing, where it's like once it's a 3 or 4 bet pot, you don't have to go too big on your C bet. You can always down bet.
yeah, it's easy to get all the money in still. Like, those two players are relatively deep, so, you know, if Doug actually did have aces or kings there, he's probably not going to bet like 1/4 pot. I presume that his continue size would be larger. But at the same time, it's like, if you're not going to bluff ace king to try to get like a cheap turn card, then like you just have no bluffs. You never have a bluff on the flop because you just have like aces or kings. I mean, maybe queens. He even 4 bets pre in that orientation. I don't know, but he's like betting those and then just never betting ace king or worse. So he just never bluffs, and that's a pretty unbalanced position to be in. I mean, it's one that I'm pretty well aware of with Doug. Doug does not do a ton of bluffing. There's a number of players at this table that don't do a ton of bluffing, and you know, if you have experience with each other playing on a regular basis, you're going to pick up on that stuff. And, you know, Blake there, I mean, he bet 150. Blake bet 150 into a pot that was like 500, and just snap muck from ace king, right? I mean, like a check call is honestly better than a check fold if you're Doug for that price. All right, 470 in the middle. Front door spades completes on the turn. It's a check, bet, call. And now a 7 of clubs here on the end completes the board. Kevin here winning with the 10 kicker. And with this run out, yeah, you kind of just shut it down. Bet 2 streets and take your showdown. And 10 out kicks the 9 for the pot. Poker Jesus here in the chat wants to know, have you guys done any PLO streams in the past, or will the one at the end of the month be the first? No, it definitely will not be the first. It will be the first in a little while, because we used to have a pretty regular PLO game that we would run on, I believe it was Saturdays. Way back when. I mean, that was many years ago at this point. But PLO, it's not as popular. And for players that are, you know, sort of familiar with Texas Hold'em, they look at the screen and there's just, you know, 5 players there with 4 cards each, and it's a lot of information to digest. So if you're not like a real hard, die-hard PLO player and someone that enjoys that game, you might tune in for a few minutes and be like, what the hell am I watching? And just get overloaded and check out. So that has been some of our experience in the past. The popularity of that game was not as great. And so, you know, we'll bring it in from time to time, but yeah, it's certainly not something that we are necessarily going to have as just a mainstay here on the program.
Definitely think it's a game that's more enjoyable played than watched.
I think that's true. Again, if you're like big into the strategy of PLO and you've got a bunch of like really talented players that are battling and hitting each other with big bluffs and things and spots that your average person is just not going to be able to find, it could be tremendously entertaining to watch. But
right.
Outside of that, it's mostly just going to be a bunch of people nut peddling, and I mean,
pot.
Very exciting.
Oh, quads, beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful here for Kevin, and especially beautiful because Doug is betting turn, betting river, and this is a pretty clean-looking board for pocket sevens. Like you lose to just like all the queens of the world, but you really give Kevin credit for a queen after check, flop, check, or sorry, just call turn. I mean, I guess you definitely could.
Yeah, it's just rough due to the action that he does have a lot of queens that just call that turn, but yeah, it's a pretty safe board aside from that for sevens.
Yeah, Doug also has the 7 of diamonds, so if there ever were some diamond combos that would float the turn. He interacts with a few of those. Yeah, I don't know. His hand is very middle of the road, I would say.
Shout out to Poker Jesus though in the live chat. I know he just moved to Round Rock, and he has his own vlog, and he's very supportive of all the other content creators. So always good to see him and his name.
Yeah, man. And yeah, I've definitely heard that before. I've had several players that I've been close with that have made the transition, and they're like, I can't play Hold'em anymore, or like they'll play the big local tournaments or something because there's just too good a value, but they're just like sitting there hating their lives, you know.
That's a lot of. It's so funny you say that because I think I've known you probably 2-3 years now, and a lot of those guys that we play tournaments with, they would never be caught playing Hold'em unless it's a 50K, 100K guarantee. They're all PLO players. They're all solid Hold'em players, but they're just never gonna go back to the game just because PLO is really where a lot of the money is at when you can make it so quickly.
Yeah, you can also lose it very quickly.
That's
right?
very true.
it's a high variance game, and I mean, like 5-card PLO obviously becomes a little bit less high variance, but most of the games that are like regularly played around here are going to be the 1-2-5 games, and like those play pretty deep. The pots get pretty big pretty quick, and you're playing with 4 cards, so you can get a lot of money in, and then just kind of have to hope and pray that like your draw gets there or that your flopped made hand holds. And I haven't dabbled that much, but the little bit that I have has been rather painful because it's like, oh, I just have a hand that I can't fold. We get all the money in on the flop and turn it over, and it's sure enough like 30% equity between the 3 players that are in, and like I didn't hold. Like, okay, cool. And there goes $1,000.
We're gonna have some action on this hand. King high flush from Rick. We had Mimo lead out, and Optimize just flops middle set.
You were born in 56? 57.
Yeah, Mimo here just kind of taking a little stab at this. Does have some turn cards that he could have represented a better hand than what he has. However, facing this raise to 135, he is going to duck out. Rick, though, not going to be going anywhere in position with king high diamond draw.
What did you say, Stan? Yeah. You had to memorize phone numbers. But if you didn't go all the way, then
I would say that's a relatively clean turn card. Shouldn't be too many 7-9s, 4-7s in the range. Maybe diamonds, but should be a pretty safe card to continue on after check raising that flop.
Yeah, absolutely. Optimize should have no qualms about putting in another bet here, somewhere around 300, I think. It's going to be pretty standard.
Definitely think it's an interesting spot when you're the one check raising that flop. So if you don't have diamonds, you're leveling from both points of views. If you have the king high flush, what's your opponent check raising with? Maybe 2 pair sets. And then from the point of Optimize, it's like trying to get value from all those diamond draws, straight draws.
Yeah, so Optimize here going to really set a juicy price for Rick to continue. Makes it 165 rather than the 300 that I expected. Rick here, if he puts in the 165 pot's going to go up to 750, so he's really getting a pretty good price here, just about 5-1. Doesn't quite have that equity, but Optimize here not really charging him that much above his expected value, which is why I expected him to go a little bit bigger. So Rick does get a pretty good price to see this river. It's not the one he wanted. Queen of Hearts peels off. Luckily for him, he doesn't improve to some sort of like top pair or something where he might be convinced to put in extra chips on the end.
ways to beat the system.
Just one
Now
of
let's
those
see if
weird boards.
Optimize really sizes up or not.
Yeah, do you? It's. I feel like it's hard to get value on a board like this where you're just getting called by better a lot of the time, or folding out those diamond draws or bluffs. So
I don't think you're getting called by better. I think better would have announced themselves already by now. If you're optimized, yeah, I like this big chunky bet. You need to basically attack the very few hands that are out there that will pay you this size. Everything else is just going to fold, right? Like there's such a disparity in hand value between what will pay you and what will just snap fold. And in those cases, like betting small just doesn't accomplish anything because ace-8 is just going to be like, dude, like you're just milking me. If you have
do you ever
busted
think
diamonds
it's
or
worth
spades, like you would bet
betting
huge.
small though to induce the bluff? Given that he kind of bet 650 out of what, an 800 effective stack. So it's like there's no fold equity if the person tries to bluff.
Well, that's going to come down to a couple of factors. The first, I would say, is do you expect your opponent to go for big bluffs like regularly? I mean, if you're sitting there with some guy that's V-pipping 70% and tries to win every hand, like, yeah, check to that guy or bet tiny. Make it look like you're block betting or something. Sure. But against, I would say, most of the players at this table, you're just going to want to polarize, just go for value. Hope that your opponent somehow has like 8-6 suited and just has 2 pair that they can't fold. Or queen-8 and they river 2 pair, top 2, right? Like, and they just sort of shrug, call. That's how you're going to make your money, because the money that's in the pot, like you're guaranteed to win that. It's about how much more can we win, and you want to go for this tiny little bet. I just don't think so. But again, everybody's got a different approach, and if you're up against somebody that will just spaz and attack, if you show even the slightest bit of weakness, yeah, sure, why not? So 3 players to this flop, 7 high. So, 2 pair for Kevin, top for Stein. Yeah, this could be painful. I'll come back to your question here in just a moment, Mo. But yeah, bet a 60 here from Kevin. Stein will make the call. Here we go to a river.
Ooh,
my God.
Wow, that's
It
blood.
is spades, so front door spades completes. Stein will be a little bit concerned about that as well, but Kevin with the full house. As long as he doesn't size this too aggressively, I don't think Stein could fold. Yeah, I think this is a shrug call out of Stein. 190 the bet, and there it is.
That's a brutal river.
Yeah, definitely not what you're looking for. As Stein, like you could be thinking your opponent could be value betting weaker 7s, as well as any of the missed diamonds of the world. Stein sitting on 2 clubs. He has just like pretty much the perfect bluff catcher. It just doesn't work out for him this time. All right, so Mo the Cat here asking this question. Oops, everything moved as I went to click that. There we go. 5-card PLO is even more nutted than 4-card PLO, says Poker Jesus. Which was, again, the stupid chat moved on me as I tried to highlight this question. Poker Jesus, of course, making the answer for me, which is that the more cards you have, the more nutted, exactly as he said, the game becomes. Basically means that if you can look at a board and be like, oh, the nuts is like ace king for Broadway, someone is very likely to have it because there's so many hand combinations out there. And so if you can recognize what the nuts are and you don't have it, then you just fold.
Yeah, I can give an example of that. I played PLO 6, and you really just have to wait for people to make mistakes. I had the ace high flush, they had the king high flush, and they paid me off. But really hard if you're playing against good players in PLO 5 or 6 because, they're not going to play anything but the nuts. You really have to find the right lineup to make money. Otherwise, it's just a basically non-variance game if you're playing with, good players.
Yeah, and I mean, the variance comes in just on the pre-flop and flop streets for the most part, because, like, by the time you get to the turn, you know, the draws have very well kind of identified themselves, and the pot has grown to a point where, yeah, it's like, okay, I either have enough equity between all of my 5 or 6 cards going to a river to actually put in the pot size call or something, whereas, you know, most of it you just kind of find out earlier, like, no, this hand just doesn't have enough to hold up,
And Brad.
and you let it go.
Okay, here we go.
Fucking Brad, new guy.
And
But yeah,
follow up
bet
with that, I'll
sizing
probably-
too
I'll never
is-
play PLO 6.
Bet sizing too is very interesting because, especially in the PLO bomb pots, most of the bets are just pot. People just like, oh, I've got a really good hand, or like I'm potting. When you start playing with real PLO players, and especially you get into PLO 5 and 6, like
Good. All right, everyone
that's
check.
less than pot,
Okay.
and being able to identify like what you're attacking, like who you're trying to charge and what price you want to set, like all of that becomes much more important. And I do not have nearly enough experience with that.
7 check, 8 check.
All right, here we go. Doug has a set of 6s on the bottom board here on the turn,
Bets 50.
as we still have every player still involved.
There's 2 sets on top, set of 10s and set of 3s, but someone has Broadway.
And a set of kings for Mike.
Oh, wow. Yep, 3 sets and then Broadway.
5 raises to 200.
Doug here feeling pretty good about both boards, honestly, as he has the spade flush draw on both with the set of 6s. So gonna call the 50. I presume he'll call the 200. Although Mimo is going to come in for another raise, and this is pretty dangerous.
Oh, he has the ace-high flush with diamonds, so... This is just
Well,
a
it's a
spot
draw.
where, yeah, draw. It's
But-
just where you want to realize your equity as best as you can and not blow it until you have the made hand.
Mimo, though, gonna put his foot all the way onto the gas, ram it down to the floor, and hope that he can get enough players to fold out that his set of 10s and flush draw can somehow find a win for at least half the pot. But I agree with you. I think just calling and trying to get to a turn by putting as little extra chips into the middle as possible is the right move.
Not
Doug here
fun
in a little bit of a
either,
spot.
yeah.
He's now facing this bet of 930 with second set on bottom, a spade flush redraw, top, and spades on the top board. Can also hit a jack to make Broadway. I mean, Doug is a pretty tight player. Oh my God, he is going to let that go. I was
Wow.
going to say he's a pretty tight player, but I feel like you just have a little bit too much equity to fold.
Yeah, on both boards.
But now that Doug is out of there, look at Optimize's equities just jump to the ceiling.
Yeah, it's not a good
Now.
feeling when you have one of your blockers to your boat either, with the queen 10-10.
Oh yeah, no, it's pretty awful.
C5 called.
Emo in a very dangerous position. Mike here is going to commit his chips. He's got the top set,
And run it.
and that's about it, right? I mean, this is
pot.
this is the danger of these bomb pots. Like, he needs to improve to make a better hand on one board. The other one is
Right.
just completely forfeit.
Yep.
I mean, okay, I guess I should take that back. If he hits the last king in the deck,
Yeah.
he'll improve to the best hand on bottom. But, like,
Oh, wow.
all right, Mike gets bailed out, makes
Diamonds
the full house.
makes it too.
And Optimize, who had the lion's share of the equity on both boards, is going to get scooped as Mimo Claus hits the diamond on the end.
Oh, that's brutal, and he makes a call for the rest of it.
Flush and a flush.
Optimize throwing his hands up in the air. He's like, yeah.
Yeah, he gets scooped because of the 10s full of queens as well on the side. That's brutal.
Well,
It's
he
literally
gets
worst case
scooped.
scenario.
Well, the actual. So Mike was all in for less. He's going to get
Right.
scooped on the side by Mimo Claus because Mimo.
10s full,
Actually
or queens full of
had-
10s, sorry. Queens full of 10s.
So we had a card read error. Mimo is not
Oh.
working with a set of tens. He has
Oh,
Jack
really?
4 of hearts
Jack 4 of
under
hearts.
there.
Okay, okay.
So I don't know exactly how this happened. The one seat we always get the most card read errors just because of the muck, the down cards.
Oh, but that's still
and
sick because he gets the
whatever
backdoor
interact.
hearts. Oh my, that's brutal.
It's a sick, nasty run out.
He was free rolling with the ace jack Broadway. That makes more sense now though when he.
It makes way more sense.
Yeah, when he pots turn with the Broadway.
Yeah, Broadway with the redraw and the diamonds on the bottom. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Mimo is not going to end up with the full pot though, as Mike is going to get bailed out.
No.
There on the board pairing river. My goodness, what a hand! Yeah, if you're optimized, you got to be a little sick to your stomach after that one.
That's it because there's really not much you can do. He turns nuts as well with Jack 5 on other board.
Oh, he got half. What did you have?
Yeah, I mean, you look at Mike's hand if you're optimized, and you're like, what are you doing in there? You just have a set.
The single set of kings, right, right. And almost all his outs were gone. Just like 2 queens left in the deck, 1 3 maybe.
1,500.
Pretty fortunate there for Mike to get himself half of the main.
Are you a fan of PLO bomb pots, or would you rather do Hold'em bomb pots on a Hold'em
Oh,
game?
fuck Hold'em bomb pots. I hate Hold'em bomb pots. We used to play those all the time, and I remember back we would play 2-5 deep stack here at TCH Austin.
Right.
Players would be sitting there with like anywhere between 1 and 5K, and would play these stupid Hold'em bomb pots. And you'd end up getting these gigantic pots because it's like you just have one board locked up, so you're just going hard on it, right? You're just like, oh, I'll just push the other guy out. Well, he's got the other board, and so you pile infinite chips in the middle, and somehow somebody like ends up free rolling the other guy because of like the fucked up turn card or something. And it's there's so many nasty spots where you just had no idea where you were, but you couldn't fold because you just had the nuts on one board.
Right.
At least in the PLO bomb pots, you know that if you have the nuts on one board and nothing on the other, like just fold. Like,
Yeah, and you
unless
also
it's
know
top
when you're gonna
boat
get
or
quartered
something,
a lot
or
of the
quads or
time.
something that's just like very unlikely to lose.
Right.
Like, I can't tell you how many times I did this earlier today. Like, I've got a set on one board and nothing on the other, or flopped nut straight on one board and nothing on the other. Like, I just fold that hand. You just let it go. A lot of people can't do it. I mean,
I think that's a big thing too, because just when you run PLO bomb pots on a Hold'em table, a lot of players aren't, accustomed to, like we said, playing those 2 boards, so they're more likely to go broke on those situations.
Doug here playing king super slow and trappy, and he does not have kings. Wait, did he even show his hand? Okay, I don't know what happened there. I guess maybe he did have kings. It looked to me like, okay, he did have kings.
A king 4.
Oh, king 4. So king. Wait, what? Oh, so Mimo won the pot?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I was so confused. I was like, what the f just happened there? So we look at the earnings there. Mimo up the most, 3K plus in the stack after buying in for 300, going down to the felt, rebuying for 700 and spinning it up. Kevin here up about 900 and on down from there. Most of the players at this table stuck at the moment, optimized. Gonna be rounding things out down at the bottom of the leaderboard. But has rebought, has a nice little fistful of pink chips there. Which he'll try to wield to his benefit. Raised to 40 here from Rick and +2. Once again getting a little bit out of line. But only getting called by
Oh, wow.
small blind. And Kiki, after just calling out of the small blind with a very speculative 8-7-0, flops a gutty and just donk leads for pot.
Something good. It's gotta be juicy. Like your card.
Rick here should be raising, but he's just gonna call.
A Pokemon or something.
I think when
Like
his
a hand.
hand's just this strong, you're just letting the opponent hang themselves, but
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's
Interesting.
always possible that I mean, it's going to work out for him, right? I mean, the fact that Kiki is going to put in another bet here is kind of obnoxious. Rick here filling up on the end. He should definitely be raising for value, just going all in. Wait, what the hell?
Another card read error?
It must be.
Yeah.
Rick is obviously not going to fold a full house there. And that, yeah, I hate these card read errors. I absolutely hate them with a burning passion because, you know, we're trying to talk through the strategy of the players and what they're doing, given the information that we have, and the information is just incorrect. Yeah. So more understandable why Rick didn't raise there.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell he had, but on a flop, when your opponent donk leads for pot, and you have bottom 2 pair, like, you've got to get the chips in the middle. Your opponent could have something like King Jack or King 10, you know, whatever.
A lot of bad turns.
They're going to lead, and they're going to have to call every raise. You got to get that money in as fast as possible before the board texture changes.
But you can't get in the space.
Nemo gonna trap with 10s?
I think this would be a really good spot to just squeeze and 3-bet, fold out worse hands.
Absolutely. I mean, we always have to have the thought in the back of our mind that these players might not actually have these cards, but I feel like 10s is certainly a hand you're going to want to squeeze with. Rick here fills up on the turn as it comes another 6. Checking through on the flop. Now you can try to get value from anyone with an ace. You keep it small enough. Does go for half pot. I like this size. Oh no, he bets 100. A little over half. Still reasonable. If someone does have an ace, they're going to think about it. Kevin has a player to act behind, so he's going to let his hand go. I think Nemo, though, certainly better than an ace, is going to call with the 10s.
Since you're planning on losing.
King of Hearts on the end changes nothing. Nemo here just hoping to get to showdown against a whiffed hand.
It's just really rough when you have not, you know, it's not a middling pair, but not the biggest pair, and you're just out of position, and you're playing as passively as possible. Really rough.
Oh, for this size, though, I'm never folding 10s. Like, Rick could literally be just completely on an air ball. He could have pocket 9s, pocket 8s, right? Like, he did just call pre, so that he's probably not going to have a ton of that stuff, but he could have pocket 5s, 4s, 3s, and deuces that are just like, oh, I'm counterfeit. Time to just try to bluff my way to a win. I mean, there's plenty of hands out there that you beat. But Mimo does let it go. And Rick will show the 6 and be like, yeah, I have it. Maybe he showed the 5. I don't know. I didn't see what he showed. But.
So you were looking at the ass right off the bat.
It's also a dream spot, I think, if Mimo was on the straddle. You just squeeze your straddle there and no one believes you, and take it to flop heads up with the already made hand.
Yeah. No, the passive play with multiple players demonstrating weakness just almost always gets punished. And definitely did happen in that scenario right there. And that's a theme too that you can see. It's almost like the poker gods kind of recognize like your weakness and just like punish you for it.
They just smite you for it.
Yeah, like we saw this happen. It happened last week. I was in the booth here with Carolyn, and it was Rick. Rick had been bluffing people left and right, and then like I don't even remember exactly what it was, but like he made like a very clear error in terms of this is a spot where like you've been bluffing. People might think that you're just like getting out of line. Like you have to take the strong aggressive line with your nutty hand, and he just like checked it or something. And then it just like immediately ran out like this shittiest board ever to where he couldn't get any more value. And it was just like, yeah, get wrecked, bro. Like you have to play it right or you're gonna suck it up. And yeah, it's
I think
just,
that's
it's
like
funny how
one
it
of
works.
one of the leaks that I've been working on is like really balancing. You know, when you have value with your overpolarized bluffs, it's like I'm overbetting pot, but do I ever have bluffs here as often as I'm overbetting the pot? So definitely tone down those a bit, but it's definitely something to like always look into, and balancing your basically all your sizing really.
Yeah, I would say that there are a few players that I play with relatively consistently that, yes, like when they overbet, it's just always value. Right? Because they correctly recognize that this is a spot where, like, my best value hands want to get as much possible money in the middle, so they'll be happy to go for it because, like, they got the nuts, right?
Right.
But it's like, you're not finding the bluffs to balance this shit.
Right.
You're just absolutely not. And so sometimes, yeah, you can read into that and just be like, oh, cool, I just fold every overbet from this player. The fun part for me has been mixing in the overbet bluffs and being like, no, I need to be more conscious about finding those bluffs so that I'm not that guy to someone else.
Right.
And it's been fun. It's also stressful when you're like, cool, I just 1.5x this.
Right.
And I
You're
have
sweating.
7
Yeah.
high.
Yeah.
Like, oh god.
I did that today and yesterday, where I polarized value yesterday with the overbet and got the call, and then today I got the bluff with the fold, and it's like the most satisfying thing. But when you're bluffing, it's like you're just sweating and trying to keep stagnant.
Yeah, don't let anybody know.
Yeah.
All right, optimize here. Flopping top 2. Bet flop. Check calls turn. And checky on the end. 9-7 here for Mike will be bested by the queen 10.
Loving that run, ain't worried.
Not at all.
Sweat it out.
So we were talking about tournaments for next year, or just schedule for poker in general. Did you have a schedule already set for maybe Seminole in January, or anything else planned?
No, I haven't really thought too much about hopping on a plane to go anywhere. I sort of made up my mind that I wasn't going to go out to Vegas for the 5 Diamond and the 1100, anything like that. But haven't really thought that far ahead as far as next year goes. I know that the WSOP stop at Choctaw comes back pretty early next year, so I'll probably consider going to that. As I skipped the last one, just went down to San Antonio to play their big series down there instead. Was kind of coming off of a real nasty downswing where it just felt like every entry and every session I got coolered, and so wanted to play something a little bit more manageable on the bankroll. But things have sort of turned around. I feel much more confident and feel like I'm not just getting crushed every time. So I would like to go up and play the Choctaw event. Outside of that, I haven't really put a lot of thought into it.
I definitely think it's rough when you kind of recognize that you're playing well, but the cards just aren't going your way.
Yeah, well, what I know for sure was happening to me was that I started off by playing well and lost, and played well and lost, and played well and lost.
Yeah.
And like every day was like driving home and just like, what the fuck? Like I played that perfectly. Got him to put all the money in with 2 outs, and then he just drills it. Like, what the hell's wrong with my life? And then it got to a point where by the like 8th losing session in a row, where I was just like, this is fucking out of hand, and like would then just start piling all the chips in because I was like, I just need a win. Like, can I please find a win? And then it's like, no, this is a spot that I shouldn't be putting all my money in. Like,
Yeah.
So I recognized that the tilt had gotten to me and had to take some time off, reset.
We got a 3-bet from a mystery 9. Rick flatting unless the cards are wrong. It's gonna be a spicy pot.
Yeah, tough to tell here. Especially whenever a card is missing from the scan on one of the players at least, it's much more likely that we've got a misread, just because like if 2 cards get pitched to one spot on accident, you know, it's like the dealer is just sort of flicking out a card and 2 cards go. Those cards can like register on the reader, then we move them over, and like the scanner and the software, everything can get a little bit cross-eyed. And then it doesn't know how to, it's like, oh, we've got 9 of clubs here and a 9 of clubs there. Like, that's not right. So it
Yeah,
just sort of
I think
blanks one
2
of them
cards
and
flew out
everything else
that
gets screwed
orbit,
up too.
or that hand. 2 cards flew out on the same scanner.
Yeah, that's probably what it should be.
Not out at the.
All right, hand number 42 here. A little past the 7:30 hour. Getting some good hand per hour rates here so far, I would say.
Allergies as well as the bullshit.
10, 7 calls.
Mimo Claus up the most, optimized stuck the
8, 9
most.
calls. 1 makes it 50.
We've got some limping going on here. Kiki up front gonna limp the 4 deuce suited. My goodness. What has the world come to? Mimo here, though, is going to go for a undersized squeeze. I think you need to go for a larger size here with the 8-7 suited.
6 calls. 7.
And a cascade of calls are going to come down.
Yeah, the price is just so good at that point when you only make it, you know, 5x, but there's $50 dead already when
I'm
you make that
surprised that
raise.
Brad folded, honestly, but he does, and so 4 players to a flop.
Everyone gets a little bit of it.
Yeah, it was terrible. The only thing that was good about him was Mike Evans made him look.
Mimo Claus going to tickle the pot for $50 with the bottom pair here. I feel like, yeah, you're kind of just hoping to get a free turn card most of the time. So betting 50, I don't know if that really accomplishes that much. Rick will instantly raise here. At 150 to go. Michael fold his queen. And there's the 8-7 in the muck. So yeah, $50 set on fire there by Mimo. As Rick takes the pot down.
Is there ever any merit of betting the same amount aside from being cheeky?
What do you mean?
Because he raised to 50 pre and then he continues for 50, right?
I mean, there's plenty of times where you're betting effectively half pot, or 1/3 pot if there's 3 players in the pot. That it makes sense. But I mean, just as like a principle of like, you know, quote unquote
C-bet,
same
right?
bet. Like,
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. There's nothing about utilizing the same bet size that ever has any merit.
Right.
Everything should be proportional to the pot size. But yeah, I mean, a lot of less experienced players, and especially sort of older folks that grew up in a different era, where you still see this today. Like I see this every time I go play tournaments on the weekends, right? Like you've got the older gentleman, he's in his 70s or something. It's like all of his pre-flop raises are 4x.
Oh yeah, super.
And all of his flop bets are like 3/4 to full pot.
Right.
And like they just use big sizes. It's like I use a big size all the time. I put max pressure. And I get a lot of folds, and that's what I like. Is I don't like to get to the turn, to get to the river, and no, I just bet and I win. And those players, when you start mixing in, you know, down bets or whatever, right? Like very often you'll like 3-bet somebody, the pot will come out. Let's say there's like 100 units in there, and you bet 20, right? Like you go for the small continuation bet, and the old timers will just like immediately sense weakness from that and think that you're just completely full of shit. and it's pretty fun to use the small bet size against like an older guy.
Just inducing
it.
it.
Have him jam it on
Right.
you. Here, then snap them off with the nuts.
I think
Doug
I had
here.
that the week after we played that tournament together. I think that was we had a pretty solid table, aside from maybe 1 or 2 people. And then the next week I played another tournament, smaller buy-in. And that same phenomenon happened where an older gentleman just, you know, the pot's around 1,000, 2,000. He just overbets like 8 to 10K or whatever it was. I'm like, you just stare at it real quick and you're like counting the pot just to make sure. And you're like, okay, I guess I fold.
Yeah, I mean, you also have to be aware that especially when you see someone that is just like doing that every time, you're like, okay, you're gonna raise to like 4 or 5x or something pre with like queen jack off, and then the flop is gonna come like 8 high, and you're just gonna hammer it for pot, like, or over bet or whatever, because like people just fold to you all the time. So you also do have to sometimes just like put on your cape or your badge or whatever you want to say and like
Right,
look
just
these
hero.
guys up, but it can be
Right.
pretty stressful. Especially when it does like comes 10 high and they just like overbet the pot and you have like pocket sixes and you're like, okay, I'm about to call this dude and hope he's on like any of those Broadway combos that isn't a pair. But then they
this is gonna
check
be
the
a
turn
big
and you're
game.
like, yes, we got him.
Doug just flops it right here. Flops the joint, the goods. Has initial pre-flop razor C betting.
Yeah, definitely got a raise here. No chance he's getting any money from his opponents, but you don't block any of the pairs. You don't block any of the flush draws. Like, this is such a good spot to build the pot and have somebody pay you off, but not to be this time.
That was King Jack for show. No other.
Optimize here, calling him out for his nittiness. That was King Jack for show. Right, you are.
Thanksgiving. They came into town.
All right, Brad here up 28 bucks. He can go to Taco Bell with me later. Everybody else is looking at going to a greater establishment or not going to eat anything at all. They'll just breathe the air, drink the water. That's free here at Texas Card House.
I watched something from, resident Caitlin. She said when you lose a lot, you're supposed to treat yourself to better, to make yourself feel better. So maybe they're going to better establishments if, they're down so much.
That could be. That could be. Yeah. No, that's certainly certainly something that I try to do for myself is if I do have a nasty losing session, especially one of those ones that's like really frustrating where you just like kept getting the money in good and then somehow getting sucked out on. Like, I don't know about you. I'm curious. As it looks like this hand is just sort of a nothing burger.
Oh, until then.
Wow, yeah, Brad here just makes the straight on the end, or on the turn, rather. Pardon me. But, like, what's more frustrating to you? Making what is objectively an error and, like, losing your chips that way? Or getting all of your chips in good and then just, like, having the poker gods just, like, smile upon your opponent that had 10% equity or something? Like, what's more tilting to you?
It's so interesting because I think as I was growing, especially in tournaments, making my mistakes and realizing, I think at the, the other club in Austin, I made 24th in one of their 1 mil guarantees. And I just made a mistake on that day 3. I came in day 3 with 27 people left, and I made a pretty bad call off. That was a flip. I knew it was a flip, literally 51.49. And I knew it was a flip, but it was a spot where I didn't have to take the flip, and I kind of beat myself up for it. So it's like spots like those where it's like, you're just making the wrong decision. I think I beat myself up for those spots, but at the same time, I went through a 2-3 month downswing where I wasn't just completely unprofitable, but it was like spots where I was getting 1, 2, 4 outed.
Yeah.
And I could confidently say I got 1, 2, 4 outed at least 20 times in the span of a month. It was like that was just really frustrating, and I don't know. I think those spots definitely make me more enraged than when I make a mistake myself, because I think I just learn from those spots. I kick myself down when I make a mistake where it's wrong bet sizing, bad time to bluff, just doesn't make sense. But definitely beat myself up more when I get it in way good and I just get 2-4 outed by that donkey on your left or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. Poker Monkey here says, who's commentating? Is that Aaron and someone else? It is. I am your usual host, as you know. And joining me, Andrew Bodine out of Houston.
Hey, Poker Monkey. Sorry.
Poker Money.
Shout out to him. He's a huge supporter of me and the Next Gen boys. I know that, so always good to see him in the chat.
Heck yeah. But yeah, when it comes to tilt for me, I am You know, and some people laugh about this. It's so funny, like the human psyche and how we respond to things. But like, if I go for a big bluff against someone and just like torch my stack, or I make a big hero call in a spot or whatever, like what, you know, when I look back on it, it's just an obvious error. Like that doesn't hurt me. Like I'm like, okay, I can learn from that, right?
Right.
And as long as there's something where I feel like I'm in control of like I cannot do that again, or I can at least take that information and use it to make a decision next time, there's some sort of value to it. When I get all of my chips in and my opponent has like 5% equity and they hit it, and then they like start doing yeehaws and running around the table, high-fiving people, whatever, like that just drives me fucking bananas. Like I can't stand it. It feels so unfair.
There was this tournament ran very well by TCH Spring. Made day 2. I think it was very early into that day 2, but I had accumulated from 400K starting that day up to 900K. It was like still 67 people. We were way deep. This person was sun running, knocked 2 people out, and they were kind of memeing him and joking about how he was just sun running and doing so well. I guess we'll get back to it. Ace 10 here, Ace 6, and then King Queen open ended. Kevin opens for 175 and Brad calls open ended. Really interesting to lead with not much ace high, backdoor spades, I guess.
Yeah, these multi-wave spots going for big bets and trying to just take it down. Maybe, I mean, half pot or whatever. Pretty challenging to make these profitable approaches, but looks to be lining up another barrel on the turn. Does go for it, about 3/4 pot, and Brad's going to be in a tough spot to continue here. I think he's going to have to let this go. I mean, and Kevin just actually has the best hand right now, which is also kind of crazy.
Yeah, gets the work done. But yeah, back to what I was saying. I got it in because the guy was just sun running so good. I think he opened, I 3-bet, he 4-bet, I jammed. Almost like, I want to say close to 100 bigs or 80 bigs. And he snap called with jacks. I have kings. And he hit that one outer because someone said, you know, I folded a jack. So one of those spots where it's like I would have been chip leading all the way until, you know, the final 3 tables at least. Whereas I got a min cash basically that day, and those are just super brutal. I got pissed. Like everyone's memeing and saying like, oh, he runs so good. He's just been crushing, and it's like, man, I just got one outed. Like what the hell? So
yeah, man, that's something that's pretty wild, and you know, we don't fully comprehend it. I mean, as poker players, you know, that have substantial experience in the space, especially when it comes to tournaments, we can get an understanding of it, but the difference between these people that have won tournaments or made these like really deep runs in big tournaments and have these big scores, whether they're super talented or maybe a little bit less experienced, whatever, it comes down to like how well you run in these just like very particular spots. Like one hand can make such a big difference. Like you mentioned that spot. There's a couple of spots that I have like this visceral, you know, memory that I have as well, where it's like if I could have just won that hand, there's no chance that I wasn't like final table deep running, like just in a huge spot for hundreds of thousands, and it's just no, like that shit's gone. Like it ended in a heartbeat, you know. The 3 outer came in and it's just over. And the difference between all of us as poker players, regardless of our skill, just these singular moments and how big of a difference they've made is just, it's incredible. We just, you know, if you could go back and highlight it, right? Just like, almost like alternate universes, you know, of like, okay, this happened and then this happened, and like these 2 divergent events that just like go off into infinity. Like that one single moment could have changed your entire like poker career, like your life, everything, had you just not gotten 2 outed or whatever.
Right.
It's just crazy.
It's like, well, there's my bankroll for like the next 6 months.
Or God, like being able to buy like a house. I mean,
Right.
you know, I've had a couple of really close calls, and then but I was just toast. You know,
Yep.
like yeah, like a top 3 stack going into the final 3 tables, where there's just an ungodly amount of money up top, and you're just out for a few buy-ins, or
I think
what
that's how,
feels
like,
like a few buy-ins.
my last tournament I played, I was like, I'm playing so well, accumulated like 200K on a day one. And then I got in a spot where it's like I'm 4 betting, 5 betting, like literally the bottom of my range, ace queen, and the person decides to go with it with nines just to cripple me. And it's like they tank for 3 minutes before finally calling off with nines. And like I feel like you could find a better spot than to call off with nines there, but I guess you get rewarded for calling off my bottom of the range 5 bet whatever it was.
You know, yeah, it happens to all of us. Some people get rewarded, some people get punished. All right, Kevin in here just sort of trying to make things happen with 7 high. He's basically playing the board at this point. And Mike here, River's the gut shot. Oh, no, never mind. He doesn't have
He had a
king
10.
2. He had king 10. Good Lord, these card read errors are killing me.
What sucks is I've got hearts from time.
You think
Fofati
you
here in the
dealt-
chat says, I always run into those 1 to 4 outers at TCH. Play against people who are just gambling rather than playing poker. It happens at TCH more than other places in my experience. Guess I'm just
I don't know
unlucky.
about that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, so your personal experience is always going to be like
Right.
most relevant to you, and so like I'm not going to try to take that away from you. Also, the good thing about that is that at TCH or wherever you're playing, just the fact that there are people willing to just gamble it up and put the money in bad, such that you like feel like you're taking these bad beats, it's actually a good thing.
Right.
And this is something I have to try to remind myself of as well. It's like
like you
every
want
time you
that,
take a
right.
sick, nasty, bad beat, it just means that you're playing against a pool that is bad enough to get all the money in that far behind.
Right. It's always gonna be a profitable pool of people and players because of that.
Yeah. And it's really frustrating when you, like, good Lord, like, if I just hold in this spot, like, I'm plus 3K, but instead I'm down 3K, like,
Right.
or whatever, like, plus 6K, or except now I'm down 3K. It's just like, oh. Like,
It's definitely one of the
super
growing
gross.
pains.
It feels really
Right.
painful, but
Yeah.
gotta zoom out and keep the bigger perspective in the long run. Anyways, pardon me. A couple of players here with some connectivity with this board. Brad 2 overs and spades. Mike with a gutty and 1 overcard. But Kiki the only player that could have continued by the end of it, and nobody does. So Brad will take that one down uncontested. Fofati says, I absolutely love playing at TCH. All caps on the love. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Is for every bad beat you take, you probably have just like 3 punts that just like come to you, and you're like looking around like, did that just happen? Like, what were they thinking?
No.
Kicker problem says, just never get it in good, and you'll never have that problem. Yeah, that's exactly right. You can't get sucked out on if you're always the one doing the sucking out.
Do you think you've gotten better over the years dealing with tilt, or do you think it's about the same in the past 1-2 years that you've been playing?
Oh, I've gotten way, way better at it. Way better at it. I'm still not perfect, and it'll probably always be something that I struggle with.
So you can't walk away from your hand once you call.
But I've gotten,
It was a check.
just way, way better at it. I mean, I can't tell you
Optimized call.
how many times I've, left the card room and just like yelling in my car, pissed off,
Yep.
like a couple
Still
years
do
ago,
that.
just like furious about
Right.
how, that asshole could get that lucky and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And now it's like, much less animosity towards the individual and much more just like, good God, like, why do I have to run so bad? you
Yeah.
know? And I hope to get to the place where it's like, where I am on occasion, where I just sort of chuckle and laugh about it. It's like, oh my God, like, how the hell did that happen? Like, that's just the most comical, like, thing. And just be able to look at it with, like, brevity and just, like, find the humor in it. So I'm making progress, but it is tough. All right,
This is
Kiki
so
here,
brutal for you,
similar situation
Kiki.
to earlier, where it's like he
Right.
made a straight, and then the board just double pairs, and his opponents are still betting. Just feels
Yeah.
super gross.
He's just laughing about it because he knows it happened already.
I'm gonna fold.
And he has to
He
lay it
is
down
going to
again.
fold the straight here.
5-6, you don't got. I have a 7.
I know, it's happened to me twice.
And Kevin tells him, I had a 7.
Yep.
Okay, fine.
He turns it over just to let him know
I
for
keep
sure.
running straights into boat. Fucking board pair boat.
That's how you get a show.
It's
I
the
figured
same
he had
shit.
7-3, just like he did last.
Talking about, you know, just getting the bad run out or the 1-2 outers. That's exactly it.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, so this time it was a terrible river card for him. The last time around, it was a really good river for him.
Yeah, because it saved him
he
from
wouldn't have
losing
seen
more,
it
right.
coming. He would have
Right.
definitely put more chips in, and he was already dead on the turn. So he's 1 for 2 in that run out being good for him, and the other one being bad.
You gotta have huevos, man.
He said, I'm gonna
Hybrid
get
Production here in the chat says, I'm here in Austin. Definitely worth the trip and playing here. Yeah, absolutely right. Fantastic group of guys here, and gals, of course. 1-2, round of each, pot limit Omaha bomb pots, and 1-2 running all the time. Get some 1-3, some 2-5 going on occasion. Of course, some stream games, always good. So, yeah, plenty of good action here in Austin, and don't forget about those promos as well.
Yeah, I will say every TCH room I've been to all of them except the RGV, and they all have something special to them. I just think the Austin one is like one of the first card rooms I've actually ever played in Texas when I first started, and just it has that very homely vibe. Definitely one of my top favorite rooms to play in.
Heck yeah. All right, top pair here for Stein. Middle pair for Optimize. Board getting way harder to continue for Optimize here on the turn. Stein, though, with the King of Hearts, can continue betting. And one of those spots where I almost don't hate a check back from Stein, just because his hand is so good, has so much equity, and it's going to be such a scary board for any inferior hands to continue. Going for a bet check bet there, I like that a lot from Stein's perspective. Does go for the bet bet, and of course loses his fish off the hook, but yeah, whenever you have a hand that is very confident in getting 2 streets of value, but the turn card is going to be scary for a lot of the hands that you beat, like that check, the bet check bet line, a lot more.
Yeah, definitely a spot where you're just like you're blocking the nuts. It's not a spot where you have to bluff the nuts.
Yeah, like you're still betting for quote unquote value, but it's like
Right.
the nuts has dramatically changed. You know that they can't have it, so it's like, oh, like what can they have?
Right.
Are they really gonna just like have King 9 here enough of the time that I can keep going for value with my 10 kicker? Like, no, probably not. So, yeah. But at the same time, he wins the pot, doesn't have to sweat a river. Nothing wrong with that either.
Always a good
All right,
feeling.
$10 PLO bomb pot. I'm going to let you cover this one as I go use the restroom. I'll be back in just a moment.
Sounds good.
King, queen,
What's for my bet? Let's just get my
king,
play.
jack with the king of hearts. The king of hearts.
Everyone loves PLO bomb pots.
I'll find
Jesse, how you doing, man?
I gave you 4 guesses. I should have made a bet.
That's
Keep
fine.
going, you might have gotten it.
Eventually, he had a redraw to a better flush than the flush I could have had. That much I know. Okay, well, see, I'm in the right orbit.
Yeah, but like that's pretty obvious.
Yeah, from what you said.
Alrighty, first 2 hands we see top 2 on one board and top set on the other. It's always rough in these spots when you know you have the nuts on one, but the board texture can always change so much, and you're not really playing the other board. Obviously, 8-7 would be a lot better here. Jacks do call. There's open-ended from Doug. Also open-ended to the dummy end. Optimized does get that straight. Deuce to 6. Like I said, it's always not the best feeling when you have the nuts on the board, but in PLO bomb pots, board textures can always change so much right on the turn, and you're not playing that other board, so Queen 8-8 deuce significantly decreases in value. Does pick up a flush draw though on that top board, so if you're not, worried too much about better flushes, you definitely have a lot more equity now. Optimize does decide to lead out with the nuts on the bottom. Deuce to 6 straight.
All right, I have returned, and there are still far too many cards on the screen.
Yep. Optimize turned the nut straight. Deuce to 6. Kiki had the top set on the flop, but obviously board texture changes so quickly in PLO bombs.
Kiki not going anywhere just yet, though.
Was just saying that
some
it
bad clubs on top. Those are not the worst clubs, though.
Was just saying it always sucks when you flop top set on one board, but you're not really playing the other, and then board texture's always changing.
Yeah. Yeah, which is why it's like my rule of thumb, just fold sets and flop straights if you're just really clawing at air on the other board. Like, just let it go. It really doesn't matter. So optimize here, yeah, with the straight and the 2 pair. 3 pair, really. He's going to scoop this pot as Kiki will sort of look in dismay at the inferiority of his cards. Yeah, I remember what the general attitude was towards PLO bomb pots when we first started doing them. I was here like on the ground in the streets when we first made the transition. And it was such a struggle for the first like month. You'd have these players that would just be like, no, I'm not playing it. I'm sitting it out. As long as we're doing this PLO shit, I'm not playing them. And then, like other people would be like, what's PLO and how do you do it? And it like just this like general sense of confusion and anger and angst and everything surrounding it. And then like it just changed. And if anybody even like suggested a Hold'em bomb pot, they were the ones. Oh, I'm not playing that, and blah 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 blah. And now it's just part of the ecosystem. Like nobody wants to do anything other than PLO bomb pots. It's amazing.
In Houston, it's a bit different. Where in a Hold'em table, it has to be a Hold'em bomb pot. I don't know why, unless the full table agrees, and there isn't floor for some reason. Then if everyone agrees on PLO, we'll do the PLO. But for example, today there was a gentleman that didn't want to do the PLO bomb pot with us on a Hold'em table, and we're like, fine, you can sit out. He doesn't mind, but it's one of those situations where he thinks he's losing in PLO bomb pots because he just runs bad, but it's because he doesn't know how to play them, where he just plays bad. So run into that situation sometimes where it's like, I don't want to play PLO bomb pot because it's just bingo. It's like, well, there's definitely somewhat strategy to it.
Yeah, but I mean, just like for when we went through the transition here at TCH Austin, like enough people just have to sort of commit to learning and making the mistakes of like going through the learning process and just, okay, I'm going to figure this out, and then wow, I actually really like this, right? I mean, we have entire games that are just nothing but bomb pots.
Bomb pots, right? Yeah, we have some of those too. It just it seems like a lot of people that are against it just are unwilling to learn or change to the stratagem of PLO bomb pots.
Yeah, I mean, people just in general, right? Human beings don't like change. We're used to our usual thing, and I didn't die playing Hold'em bomb pots yesterday and the day before, so damn well just keep doing that and I won't die. But PLO, I don't know. And of course, I'm using my my caricature voice here, but like
our actuary brings up a good point in the chat that people play PLO like they play Hold'em. It's like we said, they're playing one board, or they're just they're not playing or drawing to the nuts a lot of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the Hold'em bomb pots, God, it'd be like 2 queen high flops, and you'd have like ace queen, and you just get all the chips in, because you're like, I probably can't lose both boards.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, in Hold'em, it's like, or in PLO, of course, like the nuts are going to be so much different on each board, and someone's going to have it probably that you can't go screwing around like that. All right, hand number 56 folds to optimize in the cutoff. Ace 7-0. He'll raise it up. Brad here, waking up with a real hand, but again, gonna opt for the flat call rather than the squeeze.
Especially out of position.
Does come queen high though. Oh no, the worst of both worlds. Don't squeeze pre and then donk lead flop.
Yeah.
Does win the pot though, so what do we know? All right, looking at the earnings there, Memo's still up over 2K. Kevin up 1 1/4. Brad here can go to Taco Bell a couple of times. Everyone below
he can take you out
him
twice.
stuck a bit. I'll be going to Taco Bell later, for sure. Did not have a winning session tonight, but it wasn't so bad that I can't go to Taco Bell.
Same. That was my day as well.
Nice. Oh man, I forgot about the NFL game. We're into the second quarter. Robbie Gould has kicked 1 extra point. Low scoring affair here between San Francisco and Seattle. Just 7-0. San Francisco out in front. So yeah, I would like to see some field goals here from my man Robbie Gould. All right, Rick and Optimize here are going to go heads up to a flop.
Wow.
And that's a pretty good flop for Optimize. Is monotone, though, so he'll want to tread lightly. However, Rick has a whole lot of nothing, so he won't be any whatever opposition. Rick is indeed out of the way. We'll put that hand in the rear view.
You ever dabble in the PLO streets?
Very, very minimally outside of the bomb pots. Pretty much the one time that I really like sat down at a PLO table, bought in for 1,000, and got stacked within 2 orbits.
Oh man.
And like didn't feel bad about it. I had an overpair to the board with a king high flush draw, backdoor straight draw. Like I had enough equity to get it in, and actually got it in against 2 opponents that I wasn't dead against, but it was 2 pair, top 2 for 1 opponent, and he just like held, you know, just like
That's
somehow.
so sick. Yeah, somehow.
All right, Kiki here. I'll raise it up after Rick limps. King Jack, Mike in there as well. So 3 players to a flop here. This pot pretty small given the hands that we're looking at.
That's what I'm thinking. I think you just nailed it. Okay.
Jesse here needs to get change in order to make the pot right. And here we go. 3 players to a flop. 9-7-5. Couple of spades out here for Kiki. Gut shot for Mike. And just 2 overcards for Rick.
What's an example of that?
Check, check over to Kiki, who looks like he may have bet out of turn. Mike not going anywhere, but I suspect Rick will head for the hills. And I say that, but Rick here lining up a call. Does have the king of spades. Understandable that you would not love to fold your hand right now, but at the same time, a bet and a call already in front of you is a little bit sketchy.
Heads up, I probably wouldn't mind the flat or the peel, but multi-way when the guy calls already behind you, or I guess in front of you.
Yeah, it does have those backdoor opportunities with the 10
And
of
he,
hearts
yeah.
helping things out, but the
It's like the
donk lead here.
gin turn card. You're double gutted at this point to an 8 or a queen. All you were asking for, I guess, when you peel the flop.
Yeah. Pretty wild lead, though.
I just have to mark what's
Both opponents still calling. Mike's still in there with the pocket sixes, even.
Wow, and they're good.
If this just gets shut down by Rick and Kiki just sort of shrug checks behind, this is going to be ridiculous when Mike wins this with sixes and sevens.
Yep, right. And everyone just has some muck behind.
Oh my
That's
god.
brutal.
That
You like that back jam all in.
it's these sorts of hands that I think a lot of players just kind of brush aside and don't really cling on to. They don't really think about it as a learning opportunity. They're just like, oh, well, that sucked. That was stupid. It's like,
Yeah.
this is a perfect example of like how Rick was able to manufacture so many wins on the last stream. It's just like aggression wins pots because when people miss and they miss a lot, like they just can't resist you. Like you're gonna win, but you also have to put in the aggression. You can't be checking and expecting to win in these spots. And you know, like he donk leads the turn into two opponents.
Yeah.
Like
Get the donk lead river as well.
you got to keep going, man. You started telling a story. You got to keep telling that story. And if he bets, he just wins. Like no chance his opponents can call.
You're about to go to Fifth City, I think.
Fifth City.
They were talking shit.
Yeah.
Rick back in the saddle with the king jack.
Big boy right there.
Flops top pair second kicker this time. Much better hand than last. Checky. 3 of hearts now on the turn. I suspect Rick will put a little tickle out there. $50.
Think about somebody like T.O. Remember how that dude was?
And optimize heads for the hills. Not an ace of hearts on the turn.
But I mean, they have IU, which is like slightly worse.
All right, so hand number 60 already coming at us here. 8:15. So we are ripping and roaring through these hands. I love it. I'll be honest, it feels like it's later. Like I feel like it's almost 9 o'clock just because this game, for whatever reason, usually has more tanking and multi-way sort of spots where we would be at like hand number 40 or something right now. So it just feels like we've made a lot of progress here this evening. So hats off, kudos to these players for keeping the pace of the game up. All right, single raise pot called in 1,000,000 spots. What I thought was 1,000,000, it's actually just 4.
Seems like a lot still for a $35 pre-raise spot.
Definitely. Mimo here flopping quite well. Trip 10. Nobody else has anything, and Mimo's gonna check his
Oh,
butt.
wow. That's a spot where you have to bet just because the board texture is so wet. You have
I
trips to start
concur.
building the pot, and then he lets Kiki get a free card and get there.
And now not even gonna raise on the turn, so Mimo just
this is-
traps City here with the flopped set. Front door spades bricks out. Kevin was still in here with the 7 jack somehow. I presume his hand is
He was the
correct.
one that let out on the turn. I think because it was so passive when it checked through.
I see. And now
Oh,
Mimo is
no.
going to spring the trap, but he's trapping himself. Kiki is going to rip it all in with the bottom boat. And now Mimo going to have to call. He does. He makes the call, and he is going to get stacked. Mimo
Yeah.
shipping another 1,000 over to Kiki here on the end. This is, oof, that's painful. This pot had like a couple $100 in it going into the river, and then all of a sudden it just balloons up to 2.3K, almost 2.4.
He was 145 on the flop, and then only 300 by the turn or by the river.
Yeah, another learning opportunity here for sure, which is there are definitely spots to slow play, but this is a prime candidate of a spot where you don't want to. Now, the result likely would have been the same, and some people will probably point that out or maybe even think about that as though it doesn't matter because it would have happened the same way. But
7, 8, 9, 10.
Well, I think yeah, bet on the flop probably folds out the deuces, but it's you just want to charge those draws in that spot. It's just such a wet texture. You're in position, multi-way. Your hand's so strong just get some money in.
yeah, like it's not a results-oriented sort of a thing of like, oh, you let the deuce get there. You want the deuces to fold. No, you would have wanted the deuces to put some money in the pot if they were silly enough to do it. But
Right.
you needed to actually force them to pay in order to see that turn card. And it's like you say, the deuces aren't even the hand that you're like quote unquote worried about or trying to charge. It's the spades, it's the 8-7, it's the 8-6, the 6-7. Like there's just all of these things that.
Yeah, if they get in there with 2 outs,
you're
you're more than happy to let them get there with 2 outs.
Yeah.
That is him. Y'all believe it or not.
You need some points.
Yeah, and slow playing when you're deep stacked is like the worst thing ever, and that's the biggest difference between tournament and cash. In a tournament, when let's say that your like effective stack on the going into the flop is like 25 big blinds, and you flop top trips, like sure, slow play it, man. Like even if it's a relatively wet texture, I'm not saying you should do it all the time, but like. You're going to go with this hand. Like, you are going to play this hand for all of your chips because you only have 25 big blinds and you're at the top of your range. So you're ready to play for it all, regardless of how it runs out. Sure, slow play. It's going to be easy to get all those chips in, and you're just at the top of your range, so if you get coolered, so be it. In this situation, right, you're playing in this deep stack cash game. You have thousands of dollars in front of you, and there's $100 in the pot. Like, you have to start building that pot. You're never going to be able to get a bunch of money in there if you don't. Slow playing is just not nearly as effective, not nearly as good for your bottom line.
Yeah, I think it's definitely different as well when you're playing in Texas where we're playing 300, 400 big blinds effective at, 2, 5, 10 in this case. Whereas say I played at Bellagio for Thanksgiving, I was 150 bigs at 5-10. It's definitely just a different game, a completely different game.
Yeah. All right, looking at the earnings once again after that last hand, Mimo taking a big hit. Now still up over 900, but moving down into second place behind Kevin here in terms of overall winning. Optimize here still rounding things out at the bottom, stuck a little over 700. Rick and Doug down 600.
A lot of people have recovered a decent amount from, I think, almost 3 people being stuck over 1,000.
That stands out.
Boom.
All right, $10 straddle is on.
Get in there, man. It's good stuff.
Turn the air up a little bit.
Check.
Pretty good flop for deuces.
Nobody taking a stab here, though. I definitely think Doug should have continued, and Stein certainly could have thought about betting for protection. But as it stands, we do check through. There's 7 of hearts, and it looks like what we check through once again. Just waiting for the action to get caught up here before we go to a river.
I'm still chicken.
Yeah, meaningless 5 here. I mean, Stein with the deuces. He'll happily turn his hand over and take down the pot, but he's going to wait for everyone else to turn their hands over first. And give him the slow roll.
The slow roll with the deuces.
What a slow roll.
God, Stein, you should be
That's a good one. That was a good one. You don't see good slow rolls often.
Yeah. What's your opinions on the slow roll? Do
You're
you
allowed to
ever
return.
bring that one out?
I don't mind it in a game where a majority of the people know each other, but I've been slow rolled pretty brutally in tournaments by some older gentlemen where they just think it's okay and it's like just not the right time or spot. It's like in pretty big spots, right, where they're just like joking about it because they think it's okay, and I get it's part of the game, but you know.
Yeah. No, it doesn't feel good at all when you make a big river bet and they sit there and they tank it out and they tank it out and then they finally call and like the whole time you're like, oh, like I've got to be good. And you turn your hand over confidently. They like squint at it from across the table. 5 seconds goes by. You're like, we got him. And then they flip their hand over and you're like, wait, what?
I think
like,
you and I.
First of all, you even
yeah.
thought about folding that hand, and then you didn't just snap turn it over.
So
like, what
brutal.
the hell? Yeah, that's obnoxious.
I think you and I have the same mannerism where we're just like we just flip our cards over at showdown a lot of the time. Where it's like whether we bluffed or we called off or we were whatever it might be, and then we just flip our hand over to move on and keep the pace of the game. Whereas other people aren't like that, so it's definitely sick when you're first to flip just to get the hand over with, and they're just taking their time just to slow roll.
Yeah. Pumbaa Danny here in the chat says being nit rolled is worse. Yeah, no, the nit roll is mostly
brutal.
the only way that I get slow rolled. Most people don't like intentionally slow roll me, but
I had someone nit roll me with a flush yesterday. Like I think they rivered the flush or whatever turned it, and I think I had a straight, and they're just tanking with it. Like I don't think there's ever a spot where they fold, but they nit rolled, and I was like, oh, you're good, man.
Yeah. One thing that I do enjoy doing is slow rolling the chop. You'll be in
yeah.
tournament or
Like
cash
no
game.
harm, no foul. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got the same hand, and you give them the head shake. You look at your cards again. You're like, I can't believe it. Ugh, disgust.
Can't believe we're chopping.
Yeah, well, yeah, I usually say, oh, God, I can't beat that. I can't believe it, or whatever. And then you turn it over. And people that don't know about slow rolling the chop will, like, look at you like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, what are you doing? And, like, people that are in on it are just like, oh, he's got the chop, of course. All right, 3 players to a flop. Comes king high for Mimo. Second pair for Kevin and squad douche for Mike L. Check through to a turn. Or perhaps that's just Jesse moving his arms a boot, as it does look like we've actually got a bet of 15 and a call. Up and down now for Mimo. Kevin here well behind, but we go checky. Let's see if Mimo bets the river. He does not. Quick check behind. Kevin here should just be taking his showdown as well. I mean, a pair of queens, no kicker. But
I don't mind the check river, but I much would have preferred the bet turn when your hand definitely improves equity-wise.
yeah, it's like if you bet turn and get raised, then you can always call. And so, yeah, I definitely would advocate more for going for a bet check line than a bet check bet line, or especially than bet check check.
I think I might have seen it, but I didn't pay much attention to it.
He was only looking at the marks.
The UT girls. I got 3 cards.
Right.
Here.
$5 to go. No Stroud.
Pretty good. I don't need
Nemo here first act. Oh, it looks like we got a misdeal. Somebody got 3 cards or something, so we'll start over.
I didn't run.
Do that one again.
Let me go see what's below it. Yeah, they got football on.
Did you ever deal before in your poker career?
Never was a dealer. Nope.
No, thank you.
Do you ever get tilted by bad dealers?
Do I get tilted by a bad dealer?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. I will never forget my experience at the WSOP the last year that they did it at
Rio.
Rio, so a
Yep.
couple years ago. They were so dealer short-staffed with COVID and all that going on, right? Like they had COVID mandates for vaccines, and you had to show your vaccine card and all kinds of shit. So a bunch of dealers weren't in the pool. Like it was a complete shit show. I don't know if you went out there for that WSOP.
Right. They picked up people from the blackjack tables or baccarat tables to deal.
Yeah, I mean, I literally would sit down in a like $1,500 tournament, and the dealer had never dealt Hold'em before.
Oh my god.
And you know, like we're trying to like coach them through like, no, you have to wait until everybody finishes betting before you
Right.
put the turn out there or whatever. I mean, just like absolutely ridiculous shit. I was losing my mind because I was also running so fucking bad that
Yep.
like I just
Bad
kept getting
combination.
coolered and one-outed and two-outed and shit.
And you're trying to
And then-
explain to them how to ship the pot the other way.
Yes, like it was so obnoxious, and it just felt like everything was conspiring against me. You know, speaking of tilt and how we handle it, like that was a very painful experience for me, and I got very tilted about the dealers and the low quality. But certainly here at Texas Card House in Austin, up in Dallas, any of the Texas Card House locations that I've been to, and honestly, just most of the card rooms in Texas have pretty good staff. But especially here at Texas Card House, just I mean, cream of the crop. Honestly, we do a really good job of hiring only the best dealers that know. They know their shit. They know their shit. Like you rarely need a floor to come get involved. If you do, it's because the players are like very adamant about like a certain ruling or something. But I mean, these dealers here, like they know what's going on. They know how to make the correct calls and what to do in different scenarios. It's really fantastic.
Yeah, I will say, as unbiased as possible, like I believe wholeheartedly. I don't think I've ever had a bad experience with a dealer at any of the TCH locations, and other rooms around Texas as well. I think maybe one or two Houston rooms might have had like a dealer that needed coaching or was new, but I don't think I've ever encountered a bad dealer at a majority of the Texas rooms, especially at TCH. So.
Yeah.
Which is really hard to do, and we have a lot of action on this board. Oh my god!
Yeah, absolutely. Rick here turning trip jacks, feeling pretty good about his hand, but Mike L is filled up.
Jackson
way out
5 rep.
He's gonna go for the check call here, though. Not gonna try to build this pot yet.
Oh,
And this is another reason why you don't play your hand slow, because this runs out scary, and you can't get any more value from your opponent's trips. Got to get the value before the board texture changes. And another lesson in slow playing gone wrong.
there's just so much value you can get from a single diamond. You're not blocking it, obviously. You filled up on the turn. Just charge all your King X, Queen X, 10X diamonds, and then charge all the other jacks. You get so much more money when that bad river rolls off. You're not going to get any more.
Yeah. Yeah, your opponent like really has to have just exactly the king of diamonds to even consider betting the river. And there's just not very many hands that contain the king of diamonds. And a ton of other hands that are going to see that river card and be like, ooh, my hand was pretty good, but now it's probably not. So check.
It's over? Yeah. I don't know.
Especially when you check call flop, just to get some more, or whatever it might have been.
Oh, yeah, Texas.
All right, Mike here will raise it up, a couple of 10s.
Say when the ship is?
Doug is in the mix out of the straddle with the 6-5-0. And 2 overs and a gutty here for Doug. Mike will go for a C-bet, and Doug just going to check call here. I think a check raise is pretty reasonable. Mike could have all kinds of just like random overcard type holdings. But Doug does just go for the check call. It's another small bet here on the turn, and Doug is now done with it. So happy to peel for the gutty one time. Doesn't hit, and he'll let it go. I do like the check raise in these scenarios, where you can continue barreling like any turn card, because
You just have a lot of fold equity against their ace highs and king highs.
yeah, you got a ton of fold equity, and like regardless of what the turn is, like if the turn is an ace, like yeah, maybe that's not great, but even if the turn is an ace and your opponent does have one of those middling pairs that is just like never folding on the flop, like you can still blast them off of it by continuing with your aggression. So a lot of opportunities to win when you just bet, but
Mike just waking up with hands at this point. Ace jack raises from the cutoff, 35. Same sizing. And I think he just takes it down. Do you more often balance your pre-flop raise sizings for most of your hands? Or does it depend on, I guess, your range for specific things?
I don't fully understand. Is the question like, do I have different sizes pre-flop?
Yeah, so like you would raise, I guess, aces differently from, let's say, 10 jack.
No, absolutely not. No, the raise sizes need to be very consistent.
Right.
If I'm raising from under the gun, sometimes if my standard open on like a $10 straddle is 35, sometimes I'll open to 40, just because you have every player to go through at the table. You
So
don't
it's
have
more
any
of just
folds yet, so it's
consistency
like,
within the positionings.
yeah, it's like I'll make it 40 instead of 35 just because like maybe that first player that would just like consider calling and then it just leads to a cascade of calls, just looks at that extra $5 and it's just like, yeah, it's not worth it.
Right.
But outside of that, no, it's certainly never going from like 35 to 50. Like, oh, I got aces, I better bet 50
Yeah.
this time. Like, hell no. Mike here on a heater. I think that's 4 wins
Yeah.
in a row.
5 if you count, I guess, the pre-flop takedown with the ace jack.
Hell yeah. Baller. And yeah, he's solidly back in the black here, up $237.
You ready to give me my Christmas gift, Kevin?
All right, $10 straddle is on.
A beat down, that's gonna be your
Mike here is going to limp his way into this pot, try to see if he can win another one by just flopping the best hand.
He just feels that he's on the heater.
Yeah. Well, had he raised, he would have just won this pot free.
Probably, yep.
As it stands, we're going to go 4 players to a flop. It comes ace high.
Still
So,
flops the best, yep.
Thought he was a butt.
Oh, over bets here.
All right, Mike can do no wrong here, winning every hand in this orbit.
That's what, 6 for 6, so 3 more?
Yeah, right. LV Coleman, what happened to my gamble? Well, you may have gambled too soon after your last one.
You,
Or-
you misspelled
you
gamble,
didn't.
my friend. Yep.
You spelled gamble.
See these two?
Gamble.
They're gonna be in. Those are gonna be in, and then we're gonna. Stop, bro. What are you talking
That's what she said.
about? I'm not even talking to you.
Yeah.
Cramping my style.
All right, folds over and around to Stein on the button. Not a believer in opening the 10-6-0. Optimize here with the ace-10-0. He'll definitely be opening his hand.
Take it down.
Take it down there, big dog.
And another quick one, over and out. Hand 72
Yep.
is in the books. We are ripping and roaring here. I love it.
I know. Just I need an IU 70-yard touchdown. I'll take that.
One thing, so going back to your question about getting tilted by dealers, one thing that I will say is that regardless of the dealer's like quality or their their experience. Like, one thing that I will not tolerate is people being rude to dealers.
Oh,
it's like,
yeah.
I like was tilted and frustrated and upset about the fact that these dealers were just like virtually incompetent when it came to managing the game
Right.
that we were dealing with. But like, there's under no circumstances was I going to be rude to them or
Right.
like give them a hard time about their inexperience. And whenever people do that or like act like the dealer is the cause of their demise or their bad fortune or something, it's like, we all have to step up and be like, shut the fuck up, bro. Like,
Yep.
this is not their fault. They didn't do something to you. Like, just move on with your life. And so I wanted to put that out there because, the worst poker players in the world, there are not very many of them. There certainly aren't very many here at TCH Austin that I have to, sit around the table with. But every once in a while, you do get one of those people that will go out of their way to berate the dealer or make it about how they don't want them to win or some nonsense like that. And
Or they'll stand up and walk off when the dealer is just not the dealer that they want. I'm like, you can't be serious, right?
yeah, I mean, like superstition or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
this guy always deals me coolers. It's like, whatever, man. Like,
I've had the superstition thing where like it's okay if you just stand up and walk away from the table. Don't berate the dealer if you're not gonna let him deal to you. It's like that's just uncalled for. It's like I've been so I dealt to you I guess 3 years ago back when you were in Houston playing on like the tournaments here, but I did deal for a period of time during the COVID era. I got laid off for a bit. Good now, but definitely dealt a bit, so definitely got the perspective of the other side, and I treat my dealers, with a lot of respect, and no matter what room they're in, no matter how new they are, everyone has to make a living, whatever it might be, whatever situation they're in, so it's definitely never the dealer's fault. If you're running bad, you're running bad. That's part of the game.
Yeah. All right, open here from Stein with a couple of red sailboats. Optimized 3 bets next to act. Jack 9-0. Everyone folds. Stein makes the call. And here we go. Heads up to a flop with 5 of clubs. Not coming. A couple more 5s on the flop. So whoever had that 5 is going to be salty.
This was one of those things earlier where we were talking about flatting the 3-bet with a small pocket pair, milling pocket pair, but I think they're deep enough at this point to where you're willing to see a flop to try to get stacks in if you hit that set.
And also just, these are 2 of the more experienced players at the table. Stein, having played with Optimize a fair bit before, he knows that Optimize is going to be 3-betting pretty wide. I mean, Jack 9-0 is like certainly at the very fringe of a 3-betting range. But a couple of barrels here from Optimize is going to get the job done, as Stein cannot resist a second barrel.
I really like the sizings where he down bets the flop and then he barrels kind of much bigger on the turn. Definitely been using that a lot more within my games, and it's worked pretty well.
Yeah, that's going to be a very standard line. The solver approved approach.
Yeah, solver approved.
No speaking English.
Brad here has been hovering right around his initial buy-in pretty much all night.
He's trying to just take you out for tacos.
Dude, I am so down. I don't care who it is. If they want to take me out for tacos, I'm in.
I'm such a net.
Although, I'll be honest, I'm more of a burrito guy. So, when I go through the drive-thru tonight, I will not be getting tacos.
I'm definitely more of a burrito guy, but there's some really good taco places, obviously in Texas, but there's that taco place across Resorts World, if you ever been. What is Tacos Al Gordo? That place is really good.
I have been there. Yeah, went in there late one night. It's like, yeah, just like these long lines. You have to like pick which line you're in and
which meat you want. Yep.
Yeah, dude.
Really
no, those were fire tacos for sure. For sure.
I remember driving by at late, 1, 2 a.m. and the line was like out the door.
Yeah, you're like, that place is packed, like, beyond the fire code. Like, what is happening? People love that spot. And it is quite good. You got to be careful, though. If you end up in the wrong line, you'll get up there and they'll be like, yeah, we've got beef testicle tacos. You're like,
wrong meat. Wrong meat.
Shit. Wrong line.
We're getting bored.
Oh man, it hurts when I see these out of position flats with ace jack, ace queen, ace king.
Dude, tell me about it. Top pair here for Kevin is the best hand at the moment. We do have Brad here up and down with backdoor hearts. Kiki in the mix with second pair and some backdoors.
Oh man, floating with the ace queen as well.
Yeah, Mike here really stretching it with the ace queen here. Is
Bink.
now drawing dead.
It's always a good feeling on a rainbow board when you just bink the nuts.
Yeah, feels good. Does check to him. Kevin here slowing down with the top pair and the gutty. I like that option from him. His hand is going to be good a decent amount of the time, but doesn't need to build the pot any further. Can just go for a check and a call, but Kevin, in fact, is going to go for a check and a fold. Wow. I don't know about you, but I'm not folding king six of spades right there.
Especially not to that sizing, 125 into 300, I believe it was. That's literally the perfect price to get reeled in. It's just, I guess that's a good fold, a good read.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Fantastic there for Kevin to get away from it.
I had the king.
As Mike now is Taco Bell man. Brad here moving up into the next tier.
You're just trying to figure out who will take you out for tacos.
Well, I think you should just hold it. I mean, it's definitely going on. You finally gave up on it, huh?
King six.
All right, open to 30 here from Stein under the gun.
But if it suited, it was the wrong.
So interesting seeing kind of a standard 3x open, whereas like in Texas it's usually, 5x or whatever it might be, 4x, 5x.
Getting all up in my grill.
Yeah, I mean, pretty standard 3.5, I think, around these parts. Certainly in the 2, 5, 10 streets, the open to 35 is by far the most standard. But yeah, every once in a while people go down to 30 or up to 40 or somewhere around that. But
I tell you what, next hand.
Nemo here does make the call out of the small blind, has a whole lot of nothing to work with there, and rightfully gets out of the way.
Is that a texture where you're c-betting a majority of your range? Just 8, 6, 3, 2 hearts.
A lot of people sort of, I think, get this wrong. Like the small blind flatting range versus the big blind flatting range or the straddle is so dramatically different that the all like 3 low card boards, you see bet against the small blind all the time, 100%. Against a big blind or a straddle call, those 3 low cards are going to be way more dangerous for you. So the check back is going to be much more appropriate against those positions. So yeah, c-betting against a small blind flat there, slam dunk.
Yeah, is that your plan?
All right, we got a bunch of cards here, so it looks like we're doing a PLO bomb pot.
All right, we'll say TCH Austin has some of the nicest chips. Every TCH location has different chips, but I like the weight in the TCH Austin chips.
Very good heft. That is true. One thing that I will say that if you go for a long session here, like a nice 8-9 hour session, and you've been shuffling the whole time, your muscles in your like forearm will start to feel it. You'll be like, damn, I've been like lifting weights all day with these muscles.
Swole out of your session.
Yeah, dude. All right, Doug here flopping bottom set on top. Gonna come out for a tickle of 45. It's called in a couple of spots here. 3 ways to a turn.
That's their dad?
Yeah.
Doug
Super
here
cool
hard
hand to
blocking
Yep.
Broadway on bottom.
Super cool hand to have because you could really be repping. Obviously, it's a bomb pot, but you're blocking obviously Broadway there, and you actually have a made hand on the other board.
Yeah, we can see that Doug is in fact drawing dead as the straight comes in for Stein on top. And Mike here
That's the first time they go, fuck.
with the.
Running back.
Wait,
Yeah,
why?
you're gonna be like,
That didn't make any sense to me. Oh, it's Jack 10 here for Stein on bottom. Don't understand why the board or why Michael was being shown as having so much equity, but he does river a superior 2 pair here on the end on the bottom board. But Stein is going to pot it, put him to the test here, and Mike loses to a bunch of different combinations of queens. And really, while he does river the set of deuces on top, gotta be pretty curious about how he can be scooping this, let alone getting half the pot back. I think rivering the set, though, just might rope him in. No, he's going to let this go.
Wow.
This is a spot where you have to ask yourself, like, okay, wait, if he has
10-10
a queen and another Broadway card, how do those interact with the top board, and what can he have up there that beats me?
Right.
There's a king and a 10 on both boards. Like, you start running out of cards real quick as to what can beat a set of deuces on top and still have a queen X of Broadway on bottom. I think that's a pretty clear call there from Mikey, but
It's just brutal when you know you're calling to most likely chop.
oh, of course. I mean, but that's what bomb pots are all about, right?
Right.
It's very unlikely, low probability event where you have a scooping hand. When you do, oh man, it feels so good. You're like, this is the one. This is the one where we get paid all of the money.
Until it's like you're scooping with nuts on top and bottom, but you're only on the flop in a PLO palm pot. And then the turn and river come out and just you lose it all.
Yeah, definitely happened. All right, Kevin here, 2 overs and spades.
I like it.
Not much here for Brad or Mike. They do have a little bit going on, but it's pretty mediocre. And yeah, single bet here from Kevin is enough to get the job done.
I got some vibrant in my car. Straight caffeine, man.
Do you use any tools for studying, or?
So I used to use pile solver and everything, but I feel like at the level that we're playing at, until you play those bigger, I guess, 3Ks, 10Ks, I feel like everyone's just so exploitative, especially in Texas, that the spots don't happen as often. But I did study a lot when I first started out, because I did not manage my bankroll correctly, and I was losing a lot the first year. I thought I was, a tournament expert, watching all these old WSOP videos, Poker Stars, whatever it might be. Quickly learned that I wasn't, so I hit the books. A lot of the spots definitely are useful, definitely later into the day twos. So definitely apply all the study materials, but for the most part, not as much as I used to, just because I don't find myself in the spots where it's like I need to be studying those spots. But probably later on down the road, I'll venture back into the materials. Also,
Yeah,
having like a good group of people to discuss hand histories with helps.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, having a study group is key. All right, here we are between Doug and Mimo Claus. Both players flopping decently. Mimo Claus here with a fantastic turn card for him. Flopping the diamond flush draw now with the top pair top kicker. This is a one-liner to a straight, so both players are going to be playing a little bit cautiously from here on. However, Doug had flopped the best hand on the flop and is no longer out in front. However, grabbing chips here, going to continue betting his 5. This is now purely into bluff territory as he goes for a full pot size wager. No chance he is betting for value at this point. Mimo Claus with a hand that I think is just simply too good to fold. Does make the call. And Doug, who was probably a one and done here with 2 black cards and a 10 of spades peeling off on the river. And I say that, and here he goes, reaching for, wait, what the hell is this? Oh, he's just trying to meme his way out of this one. Bet a 75 here, hoping that his opponent was on missed diamonds that did not have a pair and would actually just fold to the bet of 75. Or perhaps somehow just like pay him to see his hand, you know, with like busted ace-high diamonds.
I think that's a spot we were talking about earlier where it's like if you really want to polarize, that's a spot where you can just go for it, especially if you make a pot-sized bet on the turn.
Do all the major parts.
Yeah, this is the trickiest part about poker, is playing from out of position.
Right.
In that whenever you do find yourself in a scenario like Doug was right there, you're always just flying blind and by the seat of your pants. Like you're just like, we're fucking going for it, bro. You know, like
Right.
you just buckle down and go for it because you just have no idea what your opponent has. Or you give up like that and you lose to a pair of eights, you know? Like,
Right.
which is why I do think that the standard lines in poker, while they seem maybe a little bit more boring or something, like, oh, you have ace-5 here, you have bottom pair, like, just check and try to get to showdown. Like, oh, it's boring, it's not fun to watch. Well, but yeah, you don't have to torch $240 betting pot on the turn. That just doesn't make any sense either.
And I was like, if you do that, hey, at least you're unblocking diamonds. Just go for it on the river if you're going to pot-size torch 240.
Yeah, which, I mean, if you're saying to yourself, like, I unblock diamonds, then you probably just still have decent showdown value too. But at the same time, yes, you could think about trying to get a 6, a 7, or sorry, a 6 or an 8 or whatever to fold by betting big on the river. It's also possible. However, they might think that you're bluffing your missed diamonds. And you just like completely
leveling
own
wars.
Like just check and take your showdown, man. It's easy. This game is actually, it's funny how like we overcomplicate things as human beings, and especially when other people are watching. Like on these live streams, people will overcomplicate the shit out of things because they're like, oh, I don't want to get bluffed on the live stream, so let me just call you with like 4th pair or something stupid. Like I was watching EPT Prague on YouTube earlier.
Right.
And this guy just like makes this ridiculously stupid hero call with pocket 4s. Like obviously the board is all overcards to that. And he just like makes this call on the river. It's like a half pot size value bet. And he makes the call and it's just like, bro, like
He wants to
you're
be
only doing that
reel.
because you're on the feature table and you're and this is being streamed. Like you're gonna look like a hero when you call with pocket 4s. Like no one else is ever doing this. Like don't let this shit go to your head. Just don't overcomplicate the game. Check down with your shitty value or your shitty made hands that just want to get to showdown. Like just do it. You don't need to.
It's weird because I think for me it's like sometimes I think after my first few experiences it's been opposite for me. Where it's like I don't want to look like an idiot, so I'm not going to torch as much EV as normal.
Big king over there.
Good advice, man.
Yeah, not to say that I play like nitty on them, but it's like I'll definitely make more reasonable plays than I normally would.
So you're kind of a spew ball, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, come find me, please. Cash games.
It's funny because
action.
most of my experience with you has just been playing in tournaments,
Right.
and so I feel like you're a pretty like standard, like reserved, knowledgeable player when it comes to tournament play. So I haven't seen a lot of the torching.
I definitely get out of line in cash. I call with connected suitors more so than I should, but I think I definitely toned down my loosey goosiness.
Okay, yeah, you
past,
can't
like,
be
I
all
used a year
loosey
of
goosey at
cash,
the poker
yeah.
table.
Right.
No. All right, Stein here raising it to 55 on the button. After a couple of limpers, I think this sizing is a little weak, and indeed, yeah, call. Here we go.
I think it was 3
players to a
limps.
flop.
3 limps before the raise to 55.
Yeah, I regularly squeeze to just like 90 there for this exact reason, where it's just like everyone's going to call if you don't. Gonna check back over to Stein here. This is a pretty gnarly looking board to continue with ace of diamonds, king of spades, so he does check behind. 6 of spades now on to the turn. Kiki here picking up a gut shot to the 8 high straight, and he'll tickle the pot for $40. Like this is a spot where it's like, if you had a jack, you would never bet 40 bucks, right? So like, if you're gonna bluff a hand like a gut shot, bet like you have a jack.
Nice and old.
Oh my God, he drills it anyway.
Oh, wow.
And optimized with the pair of sixes, who wouldn't have been in there
The fact.
had the bet been a more reasonable size.
6, 7, 8.
Is well, he's not gonna put any more money in there, but if you got 40 more bucks than you ever would have before. I don't know, for results. Shit.
Rock and roll, man.
Have you ever traveled outside of the United States to play poker?
Just Vegas for cash, but other than that, no tournaments.
Yeah.
I guess aside from the World Series, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, sorry, I meant out
Yeah.
of these states, like the United States. Like, have you?
Oh
played
no.
international?
I was actually Wolfgang had brought up going to Australia to play some cash, and I was like, I have friends over there, so that might be fun. You know, do a little vacation to Australia, but no, but maybe down the line, do something like the EPTs. That'd be super fun.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I would love to do an EPT trip. I mean, there's lots of series that go around as well, but that are not too far away either. You don't have to go all the way across the pond either, too. Like Punta Cana, there's...
Like all the Caribbean stuff, yeah.
Yeah, the Caribbean stuff like Dominican Republic. Yeah, I mean, there's some pretty cool spots that.
Do
I
they
would
still run
definitely
what is it, the PSA Caribbean? The Bahamas?
like to do. PCA, yeah.
PCA, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that'll be coming up early next year, actually.
Yep.
All right, Rick here with the best hand, pair of sixes. Checky on the turn after a check that call on the flop. 5 of clubs here on the end. 2 pair now for Rick, 1 pair for Kiki. And Kiki here is going to go ahead and turn his rivered 5 into a bluff. A little bit awkward here as the board has a 1-liner to a straight and 3 to a club flush. I think Rick's hand is maybe a little bit too good to fold, but at the same time, this is an over bet. This is bizarre. We just haven't seen a ton of this. See how Rick responds.
I mean, I remember when I was a kid.
Oh man.
Folds the 6-5 face up. All right,
It's-
Kiki getting the job done.
It's weird when there's the check turn. What hands could he be overbetting on that river? I guess aside from clubs, right?
Had an 8.
Yeah, clubs just trying to get max value out of an 8.
Oh, you said you thought he had an 8, yeah.
Or 10-8 that somehow, no, 10-8 would never check turn. I don't know.
So you haven't been out of country for any cash returnees?
Not specifically. I did do a trip to Germany many moons ago, and I played a nightly at a casino in Berlin. And I will tell you this: the casino was beautiful.
Right.
It was lovely, but the rake on the tournament was astronomical. It was something just completely absurd, like €100 entry or something like that. And like 65 went into the prize pool.
Oh my
I mean,
God.
like it was just like you were just getting gutted by
Yeah.
playing the tournament. And I found that out, and I was like, "Are you serious? That's
Is
like
the
a
cash rake the
nightly here?
same?
Who plays this?" Say what?
Is cash rake as like obnoxious?
From what I understand, yes, but this was such a long time ago that I was only a
Right.
tournament player back then, and so I only wanted to play the tournament. And I did play it, and I ended up like busting out like right before the money. It was something stupid like 15.
You're like, I don't even want to win this.
Well, I mean, like you had to win it, or else you wouldn't
Yeah,
make
yeah,
any
you just-
profit.
yeah.
Like second place was like basically a buy-in back or something stupid.
Yeah, that's pretty
The
disgusting.
rake was so astronomical, but it was fun. You know, I was there just for vacation. Like it was right around the New Year and stuff. Went in there like the night before New Year's. Everything was very festive and stuff. It was fun.
I definitely want to try to do one of the, I think it's a WPT, like one of the Asia tours, because
Okay.
I know they did was it Vietnam recently? I just want to see how much better or how much worse the players are in the pool, because I want to see if they fit the stereotype of no gamble, no future type players or whatever it might be.
Okay. Yeah, that would be fun. All right, Mike here flopping the top pair. I'll fire 50 in here, and I don't know who can continue here. Brad does not believe in the second pair, so Mike will just take it down. Yeah, I would love to be able to do more traveling. I guess, I don't know, it's tough, right? Like, I feel like, you know, as poker players, we kind of see the money come and go. Like, sometimes we're on a roll, sometimes you have a good month, whatever, and you feel like you've got some extra income that you'd be fine with torching on, you know, just taking care of yourself or doing something fun and exciting. And then other times, you know, you go a couple months in a row where things are not so great, and it's like, fuck, maybe I'll just stay here, you know?
Right, and we're like super lucky now, obviously, that all these rooms are out in Texas, and the tournament, you know, economy didn't used to be like this in Texas, but it's really great now where there's almost a tournament every month that's huge guarantee, that's affordable, great structure.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, why would I ever travel or, you know, spend extra money for flights and, you know, shelter?
Rooms, like food,
Yeah,
and
right.
all that, yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. All right, we are 18 ways to a flop here.
That's pretty standard Texas.
Yeah. 8-6-4 Badoogie. No one paired. A couple of gut shots here. Kiki is in front with a pair of fives, believe it or not, and he will bet half pot here, 75 to go. This should clear out a lot of the field, honestly, as it's just a ton of Broadway cards being represented out here.
Pretty good spot to be in when you have the gutter ball on a low card board.
Yeah, everybody folds. Kiki just takes that down with a single wager. Oh man, Kiki's not going to Taco Bell anymore. He's toast.
He climbed back pretty decent amount after having some pretty run good / run bad with those boats.
Yeah, initially they're going down about 600, and now
Yep.
right around even. Not too bad.
That's always a win in my book, to be honest.
Oh man, when you start out in a hole and you work your way back to even, absolutely.
I
Like
told you
even
I
when
played,
you like
yeah.
go cash out at the front desk and you're like, yeah, after time I'm down, but like, who gives a shit? Like I was stuck a K or like or more. Like I'm fine with this.
I was telling you I played PLO6 that one time and I was stuck about, I think it was $4,000. But then obviously the one player makes the one mistake of not, you know, calling off with the nuts, but the second nuts, and I'm out of the hole and I'm like, I'm done. That's my day. Yeah.
All right, 3 players going to a flop here.
Oh, great flop for me.
Top 2 here for Mimo.
Yeah, he check folds ace king on the flop.
Rick with the sailboats. I mean, it's not the worst flop in the world for 4s, but I wouldn't try to put more chips in the middle with them. He disagrees. 65 to go, and of course Mimo not going anywhere. And as he is wont to do, rather than try to get all the chips in against his short-stacked opponent, he is just going to check and call.
Yeah, I don't hate the bet from Rick. I would just probably choose a smaller sizing just because you fold out the same things you would with the smaller bet, like $40 or something.
Yeah, Mimo here fills up on the end. Honestly, he should check here. If he has any hope of getting his
Pretty
opponent to,
big sizing again.
bluff. Yeah, he blocks all of the reasonable value. His opponent checks the queen, so he probably doesn't have jack-9. I mean, it's just very unlikely you're going to get paid here, but
you just never have really any bluffs here except maybe 7-9. But if he gets a call here, what do we know?
yeah, no, absolutely. Rick here is lining up the call, and he's going to make it with the sailboats. He loses to all kinds of stuff, but he makes the call nonetheless, just trying to get something going here. You can see the little head shake there. Rick is a little bit out of sorts after going down almost 1,000 after that hand.
Yeah, there just shouldn't be too many bluffs there, which check, call, check, aside from maybe the open-endeds on the flop.
And for that size, right?
And for-
Like,
yeah,
if
and for
I
that
if
size,
I end
right.
up at the river with like some dog shit hand that's like 8 high or something, whatever it would be, you know, there's an 8 out there, but 9 high or something, and I look over and I'm just like, you have the pot in your stack. Like, I'm not gonna try to bluff you for like 160.
Right.
You know, I'm just gonna put you all in. Make it so that you can really only call with the total tippy top of your range, and like you checked the queen on the currency, you just don't have it.
There's one topic, and that topic is hold on. What a selfish voter.
But yeah, I mean, again, you know, I've said this a million times. I'll say it again. Like, here we are sitting here watching that cards up on a screen. We're not at the table. We don't
Right.
have to make the decisions in the moment, feeling like, oh, maybe this guy's full of shit. And so it's easy for us to identify the spots where you should do what you should do or whatever. But yeah, it's a tough game.
I think that's one of the big things. Yeah. Go ahead.
Sailboat's back in action here, this time for Brad. He is not loving this flop, but Kevin with the top pair, he's a big fan.
Nice stab, Kevin.
I got a J-Dog.
Okay. Oh, he did have it. See,
Kevin
you
will
get him to show every
show
time.
his
All you
hand.
have to do
Talk shit.
He's
all you have
still
to do
in
is
second
question.
place on the
Ah, you
leaderboard,
didn't
up
have that.
over
He'll
900.
show you. And even if he doesn't have it and I'm right, he'll show because, yeah, you're right. I got one through.
Can you break that for me?
I like the V pips from
He'll
everyone.
show anyway.
Not too low, not too high.
Yeah, Stein here rounding out the bottom end of things at 17%, so over the Lottie line.
Let's put it.
But yeah, a lot of players in the 30, even 40% ranges. My goodness. Doug here up at 30%. Wow.
Spice it up.
Guys, practically just giving it away at this point. Doug's the kind of guy who V-pips like 13%, like 12%, and is proud of it, you know? So the fact that he's at 30% here tonight and stuck, you know? I mean, it's just another data point that shows tight is right, Doug.
Ain't worth $1.25.
Brad here
I had that beat.
over the $50 straddle will raise with the sailboats once again. Sailboats will not go away.
Bad timing there.
He'll take that one down 3, though, as nobody has any interest in looking him up.
We teed it up and he drove it right down the middle.
All right, Power Hour has commenced.
A big pocket pair at that.
The straddles will be out in force from here on off. Always do love to see that.
Coming.
You know, you've got players that have been playing, adding on, getting stacked, rebuying, whatever. So a lot of chips on the table, and then here we go into the last hour of the show, and you start getting the 25, the $50 straddles on, and all of a sudden the stacked pot ratios get much closer to 1. A lot more difficult decisions to be made. Rick
There's
here,
a ship,
not a
yeah.
difficult decision. He's going to
10
ship.
bigs.
Shit. We're feeding the pot.
All right, that's 42 bucks he didn't have before. That's pretty good.
That's a lot relative to the stat.
Yeah. It's like one of those moments in a tournament where like everybody folds and you're like, yes, like, let's go.
In cash, you're like, I wish it was more.
Yeah. Like, I kind of wish somebody would have called me with, you know, pocket 4s. All right, the straddle, the big straddle, in any case, has died over on that end of the table. Mimo Claus, not a believer in the 7 deuce. Doug here announces 30 and throws a pink chip out, because that's the way Doug rolls.
Bullshit.
It's like in the PLO bomb pots where like on the flop, the pot is like 30 bucks. And
You just throw the big chip, yeah.
no, he'll grab a fistful of black and pink or whatever and put them across there. He's like, here's a bet
Oh,
of
man.
2,000. It's actually just 35.
I've only done that once where someone called out my big 1K chip, so I was doing it every time in PLO. Just because they called it out.
All right, Kiki here, turning the top pair, improving to the best hand over Doug's flopped bottom pair, and he'll go and take it down.
How open he is right here. There's nobody within 20 yards of him. I hope I'm not going against him. I didn't even check.
Does this actually do anything?
That's good, too. Good move.
How did you get into poker originally, anyways?
I played it at I think like a third grade birthday party where they just had the chips. We had no idea what we were doing. And then in fifth grade, I think it was like Zynga Poker on Facebook. Started playing with my friend on that, which is donking off, like you normally do on those digital apps when you're first starting. Started watching a lot more. I think Daniel Negreanu definitely was a big factor, just watching his reads. And I think that's how a lot of people get in, but that was my first viewpoint into the scene. And I was like, oh, this is a super cool strategy game, basically, right? So learned the game from that. And just casually flopping set of aces. Wow.
Yeah, our first
yeah.
pair of aces in the hole in quite some time, if not the whole evening.
Doug, it's over. Stop begging.
I know we had like some kings and queens and stuff early on.
First aces, yeah.
But yeah, I think it was first aces.
But I think I didn't start taking it seriously until maybe like 4 years ago, where I just did not bankroll manage correctly. Lost a decent chunk. My poker tuition, as I call it, wasn't as bad as some other people's, but it was enough for me to take a step back and study the game a bit more, from GTO standpoints and everything. Practicing a lot more, getting my mannerisms correctly, and as I've grown and studied the game and watched it develop, it's definitely just been interesting to grow with the game, because it's definitely changed a lot with the way people use even check raises nowadays. So always learning, and I think that strategy part, like I've said in the beginning when we were discussing, was just a really big factor in why I still play the game and why I continue to play the game.
Cool, man.
So yeah, not too many years of experience, but definitely trying to put in the years of experience of work.
All you had to do was play.
75 Americans.
Any hand can flop quadrants.
You said you started out in tournaments, right? So
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so I first learned Texas Hold'em in undergrad, just playing nickel dime quarter, literally sitting around the ping pong table in our dorm common area, playing with people just had big jars full of coins, and we were literally playing nickel dime quarter. And then pretty quickly we realized that this was just kind of a waste of our time. On a good night, someone would win $15 or something,
Right.
And so it was like, well, why don't we all just put $20 in and play a tournament, And so we started doing that, and then before you know it, we actually ended up getting more people than just our initial little group of, a dozen or so that would come and go. And on our best nights, just playing in the dorm common area, I mean, we would have 4 tables full of
that's
players.
super cool. Yeah.
And so that was pretty much how I funded my beer consumption all through undergrad, was just playing those weekly tournaments. We would do one every Wednesday night, and was able to win pretty consistently as a pretty bad poker player, honestly, but always had a sharp mind for strategy games, like you said, and so was pretty keen early on how to recognize when people were weak and when to go for value and stuff like that. So yeah, had pretty good results. Drank a lot of Coors products.
It's always good when you have a group, because I think a lot of people start out with, like you said, dorm groups or college groups, playing nickel dime quarters. We did because we're so accustomed to Texas, my college and high school friend group, we would do I think $30 max buy-in to start the night, and then just you match the stack after. And with how I play, and I'm obviously much more, I guess, vetted than they are, I'd be buying in deep 200 just to stack them all if the stacks got deep. But we were playing 25 cents, so you can only imagine how deep a $100, $200 buy-in goes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, those games are fun, but yeah, I mean, when you're playing against people that like legitimately don't understand the game, you know, because they're just trying to have fun and whatever, it's like it can actually be pretty frustrating because
Oh yeah, for sure.
like your
for
bluffs
sure.
will never get through. They'll just
Right.
call you down like, oh, I got a 3 and a jack, and you're like, well, that's a pair of 3s,
Right.
and this board is really scary for a pair of 3s, but you just called anyways. And
I watched the content creator game that the WPT had yesterday, and I could only bear like I think 10-20 minutes of it before I just almost lost my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, they're just splashing, just having a good time and doing blind bets and all kinds of crazy shit.
I will say I won't disclose how much I made for my friends because in case they're watching, but definitely funded more than a few beer runs off home games.
Oh yeah. All right, hand number 96 here. We are going to obliterate the 100 hand threshold milestone, if you will. Kevin here going to try to obliterate his opponents with the King 10-0. Makes it 35 to go. Mimo Claus here, Queen 10-0. He'll make the call. And Rick here off of the short stack. He'll complete King 3 of diamonds. Doug is in there 7-6. We're going to go 4 players to a flop. Six in the window. Doug flops best. Checks all the way through. Another spade on the turn. No one controls a spade. And Rick here with the turned pair of 3s is going to go ahead and bet 40 just to see if he can take this one down. I guess 45. Doug, though, will make the call. Everyone else out of the way. Heads up to a river. It's another 3, so Rick here run out trips. Doug makes the call after making his own change from the bet. Doug is such a character. But Doug does make the call, looks him up with the pair of 6s. And Rick will get some much needed traction there. Moves up to 522 in the stack.
Boring game.
Do you like to short buy a game, or are you always looking to play?
No, I always like to cover the table because if I can't stack someone, then you know that's EV loss in my opinion.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, I generally feel that playing the deeper that you can, the better. But a lot of it comes down to obviously bankroll. Like if you're sort of shot taking in a game. That
Don't put your entire roll on the table, of course.
Yeah, and then the other thing is too, just like how things are going, right? Like on Thursday or on Monday, I just was getting absolutely like slammed on the felt. And so like rather than rebuying for a full stack, it was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna ride it out with my 500 and see how things go, you know? Like maybe I double this up, maybe I don't, who knows?
It's just rough in especially in Texas games to ever short by like the minimum. I love like I think 300 to 500 is a good spot if you're gonna buy shorter. It's hard, especially my style. Tournaments you've had experience with me where I'm just like pretty snug standard spots, but I definitely make more plays when I'm deep stack because I'm just a much more aggressive player.
Yeah. All right, 3 players going to a river here. Top set for Mike on top. Stein, though, is going to get the most fantastic river card he can possibly imagine, and he is on nut here.
Turns the full.
Well, not quite nut, but effective.
Yeah.
Nut. And Mike still going to make the call here with just the trip jacks.
It's unlucky because it's a pretty clean run out for your jacks aside from the 10-9, but 10-9's a scooper on both.
Yeah, 10-9, really good holding here for Stein. Gets the bet of 200 paid off by Mike on the end, and
Man, 9-10's just so unlikely.
Nice
stick
PLO
up,
pot.
yeah.
Can't really do any wrong in that situation.
Didn't give it to him?
You know what? I would like to straddle to $20.
All right, Blake, we will allow it.
Thank you, Ryan.
There he goes.
Ooh, K-Dog here. Gonna make it 40 to go.
Damn.
Is this unlimited straddles all the way around to the button in TCH?
Yeah, straddle to the button.
That's
Cannot
sick.
straddle in front of the button, but yeah. Straddle to your heart's content. So the 40 is on. Kiki here going to be first to act. It looks like Rick's stats have been reset for some reason. Oh, Padawan producer Kristen says, my bad. So she must have fat fingered a button. Brad here limping the king queen. Mimo Claus will punish said limp from the button with the ace king at O, and Kevin now waking up in the $40 straddle with a suited ace.
Do you like that sizing? The 180 from, I guess, 40 straddle limp?
Oh yeah, no, I think it's great. 4.5x for
Yep.
sure. You could go maybe a little bit smaller just because the straddle is already quite large. So
yeah,
160, just a straight
right.
4x would be fine. But with the limper in between, you definitely don't want to do a standard 3x open.
Yep. Yeah, I was thinking. Yeah, I don't mind the 180 either. I was just thinking of like 160 because it's already so bloated from the triple straddle.
Yeah. Yeah, but Brad here was just going to limp fold the king queen O. So he's
Saves money.
yeah, just going to torch a couple 20s there. Rick now is, you know, he can maybe still hit the dollar menu. Only down $2 at this point.
Or you get that 2.5. Oh! Look who it is. Doing all right? Yeah, you want to play today? What a tool! Hey, it's time for you to
ran
play.
like a god that
Hey, yeah,
last
get
week.
that Monday money back on the table.
Oh, that's Kevin. I was like, oh, they're talking about somebody running like God. It must be Kevin.
You were up like 7.
Yeah, while I was getting wrecked, he was scooping every pot he played.
It's always a good feeling. I can't relate.
All right, we've got a limp and then a tiny little raise here from Mimo Claw. Kiki, of course, will make the call. We're going to go heads up to a flop. Couple of ducks versus the ace-9-0, and this 2 nines right on the flop. See if Mimo Claw's slow plays this. He does not. $25 is the bet this time. And I'm a little surprised. Okay, I was going to say I'm a little surprised that the deuce is just fold, but no, he actually called. And now a slight overbet here.
Oh, and he gets a call.
Still
That's
calling his
surprising.
Kiki.
Does not believe him.
No, really doesn't. Honestly,
$200?
I think pocket deuce is a pretty reasonable call on flop. The full pot size bet on the turn is a little bit sketchy,
I'm stunned.
but I could get behind it.
Down 200.
But yeah, when you face the third barrel, you gotta be done.
Yeah, that's one hand away from winning.
That hand happened relatively pretty quickly.
Yeah, no, these hands have been cooking tonight. I do very much appreciate the brevity of these hands. We've had many a Thursday night stream where, you know, we're on like hand 70 something at this point. So cooking here tonight.
Yeah, dealers are putting out a lot of fast hands.
Fastest dealers this side of Mississippi.
It's not today.
I can always appreciate a nice dealer pitch.
Indeed. All right, we've got some ridiculous limping going on here, and Doug will punish said limping with a raise to $90. I
Ooh.
like this.
Yep.
Rick here, the only man left standing, does have to put a substantial portion of his remaining chips in if he wants to make this call. Would also play out of position with a pretty marginal holding, but he's going to do it nonetheless. King 9 suited isn't a dominating position, but he's out of position. Ace high flop, no spades. I mean, this is just going to go check, bet, fold. And Rick is going to have torched about 1/5 of his stack. Tiny little bet here from Doug.
Right, the one card.
I
Still
think you
gonna be
need.
good enough.
Yeah,
but-
it's good. I would have picked a little bit bigger, but I do like the small sizing just because it accomplishes the same thing.
Yeah, I agree. I probably would have bet 60 instead of 45, but yeah, same goal there, which is just to fold out every non-paired hand and non-flush draw type hand, except for maybe like King 10 or King Jack. Jack 10, right? Any of the hands that might have a gut shot, backdoor clubs. Mission accomplished.
That's pretty juicy pot for 10 high.
Hell yeah. Being rewarded for playing strong, aggressive poker, you know, as it should be. Kiki here, the ace Kiki, gonna raise it up 35.
This was a non-shuttle hand as well, just straight open to 35.
And Rick here, who just got shown the 10-9 high bluff, is going to flat call with it. Be like, oh, well, maybe I can win with it. Pocket pair and some suited connectors in there as well. Comes ace high, though, so Kiki with the top pair, top kicker, backdoor spades. Optimized, though, will not be going anywhere. The 6-5 of spades. Does make the call. Heads up to a turn. 10 of diamonds. No help for optimize. Save continue here for Kiki, and let's see how optimized plays now against the half pot size on the turn. Not getting the right price to call, so he'll let it go.
Really like to continue charging all the spade draws, worse aces that might think they're chopping at that point. Shouldn't ever really have a 3 in your opponent's holding, so.
Do want to thank all you guys for tuning in. I see people doing the usual here in the chat, doing the gambles. We got Poker Monkey rolling a 92, Ragnar a 91 right after it. Nice rolls, guys. Raina getting a 60 in as well. So winners all around, and as I say that, JTM New York gets smoked on a 33. All right, here we are, hand 102 coming at you as we've got a single
Taking it down.
raise and infinite callers. 5 ways to a flop.
Oh, and Kiki just flops the joint on a rainbow board.
We know as well that Kevin, Brad, Mimo all have pairs as well. Could be some additional chips going in the middle. Mimo here, bottom pair, and the bottom end of the open ender, though. Not going to commit more chips. As Brad is the better here with the top pair. Kevin is out of there.
Oh.
Kiki did not
Must have
have
been
the king queen.
Did not have
So,
king queen.
yeah, this is another one of those because one of the cards didn't scan.
Right.
Everybody's hands got screwed up, and
Right.
yeah, nobody folding the nuts.
Are the scanners for this table further up than they used to be? I know you guys got a new table in TCH Austin.
Yeah, we have had this table now for actually quite a while. But yeah, it's a little bit tough. If you look at the felt, you can kind of see there's a little circular kind of pattern in between, like in front of the players, like where they're swiping their cards. It's pretty hard to see, but if you're seated at the table, you can definitely see it. It's just kind of
Little like white dot or something.
subdued.
Yeah, marking. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. It's not a dot. It's like a little circular pattern.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is a little bit out in front of the player. That is for sure. The dealers mostly have gotten pretty good about pitching the cards onto the scanners. The biggest issue is when the cards stick together, and like, you know, these are the sort of stiff RFID cards.
Unbendable ones, right?
Yeah, I mean these ones are more flexible than ones we've had in the past, as these are you know, manufactured specifically for RF poker. They're a little bit better, but they're still stiff. They're still heavy. And so the cards just kind of stick together at times. And so you'll see, you know, pretty regular that, you know, Jesse will pitch a card and there'll be two there. And then he'll have to pull the cards apart and the scanner has already registered them. So it's just the nature of the beast, unfortunately. All right, here we are, 3 players to a turn. Doug here with the top pair, king kicker out in front.
Yeah, Rick let out on the flop with his gutter ball, and now he turns some more equity with the heart draw. So he has a green light to continue, but
Doug now going to put him all in. And I don't think Rick can fold. This pot is far too huge.
yep.
He's got equity. He's drawing pretty thin, but does have a chance. Can he find a heart or an 8? He
Nope.
cannot. 10 high, no good. Doug is going to stack Rick for, what is the second time, I think? Or no, he stacked the 1 seat earlier. All right, so Rick looks to be taking his lead.
A little spasm with King Jack there.
And we will finish out the stream. Sans Rick. Good game there, buddy. Had a nice run last week. Hopefully that makes up for a run bad.
Seat open, live stream.
I'm just saying it was an obvious overplay. I'm just playing, Doug.
All right, Mike here, seemingly thinking that we're playing 1-2. That's the $2 blind out there.
You know what? As long as you get a tattoo of
We're
the
playing
board
the
in your
2-5.
hand, and then you write triple barrel.
Do you think blinds make a difference to most Texas players?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the blinds always make a difference in that it's the first chance to sort of set the price for the game, right? Even if you're super deep stacked. Well, okay, so like in the 1-2 uncapped games, which there are some of those around the state of Texas, the blinds are sort of irrelevant.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm, I guess, asking about. Because I know the 1-3 and 2-5 here in Houston specifically don't have too much of a difference. I know they do because they're capped in Austin across most of the rooms.
Yeah, the caps are are definitely one of the factors, but the blinds very much dictate the open sizes. So, you know, like I'll sit down at a 1-2 game here while I'm waiting for 1-3 or something, right? And standard open sizes are anywhere from like $7 to $15.
Oh, really?
On a 1-2. Then you go to a 1-3. Open sizes are usually like 15 to 25.
Right.
Then you go to a 2-5, and it's like 20 to 35. You know, like those blinds really do matter, and you know, and then the rest of the streets obviously play off of that, right? I mean, the difference between there being $25 in the pot on the flop and $50 on the flop doesn't seem like that much, and yet by the river, that 2x difference made a huge impact on the size of the pot. So
I was like, I don't think I've seen an unironic open to 6 or 7 since I played at like the Golden Nugget 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's rare that, I mean, I guess there isn't really 1-2 in Houston specifically, but it's rare to see an open to $6 to $10.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, there's just obviously a lot of limping too. I mean, people just
Yeah,
love
yeah,
to
I think that's
try to
a
get
big
to a
thing.
flop.
I played a table today where 7 people were just constantly limping, and I was the only one raising pre-flop.
Yeah, I usually lose in those lineups.
Yep. Right on the head.
All right, folds to Kevin here. Jack 7 suited. He's going to open a 35. I like it. Yeah, just gets the job done there. All right, we are closing in here on the end of the stream. There's about 20 minutes left in the broadcast.
J-Dog was coming.
As last I looked, the 49ers were just absolutely steamrolling the Seahawks. They still are 21-6 here in the fourth quarter. Christian
touchdowns.
McCaffrey putting up some serious points against me in one of my leagues. Got 22. And in my other league, I am still sitting on just a measly little 3 extra points from Robbie Gold. But, you know, such is life. Optimize here. Pair up 7s in the hole. Makes it 40. Looks like Brad here is packing up, ready to go home. Doug's turn.
Second time we've seen aces tonight. Oh, that's
Doug.
a really big sizing.
Yeah, I mean, he's in the big blind, so his raise sizes are going to be larger. I like that he isn't going to downsize this, even though his hand is so strong.
Right,
So
especially from an
like
under the gun +1 open.
Yeah, no, I love this a lot. This is one thing that we see on pretty regular occurrence here on the Thursday show is someone will squeeze for like 5x or 6x, and then when they have aces or whatever, they go to like 3.5. And, you know, they don't want somebody to fold. And people that are paying attention will just immediately pick that up.
Right.
All right, C-bet here from Doug, 175 into about 400, so a little under half pot. Optimize can't fold to a single bet, so he'll call. 9 of diamonds completes the king-jack straight. Some additional diamond draws as well that could come in. Not the worst card in the deck, but certainly not one that Optimize is going to feel particularly good about. Is still beating ace-king, ace-jack, but those are about it unless he gets all the way down to the ace-5 suited type holdings.
I was gonna say a sizing of 400 was what I was thinking if I were in this spot, so bet's 375. It's really hard when you're playing so deep just to get, you know, the rest of the money in, but definitely not a spot you're hating either.
Yeah, these two players pretty deep stacked SPR now with the bet of 375 is still over 2. Optimize here, really going to think this one through, trying to figure out what he beats and what his opponent could be value betting. And it does look like he's going to settle on a call.
I think that's a pink down there, no?
Oh, he's going to raise, turns the 7s into a bluff for a very small size. This is basically saying, I already have a full house, so I really want you to continue. Please just call so that I can jam the river for value.
Queens is the only spot that, or I guess hand that would really do this, right? Because they're trying to get the rest of the money in by the river.
No, I think ace-10 is certainly going to be happy enough to do this. But as Doug, you know the ace-10 of spades doesn't exist. You're down to just ace-10 of clubs, so 1 combo there. Pocket queens, 3 combos there.
That was that cold beer, brother.
Perhaps some king-jacks, right? Like king-jack could definitely be doing this as well. Your hand is just too far up at the top of the range to do anything other than try to get all the money in. And so that would make some sense as well.
Right,
Doug
so if
here,
we're
of course,
thinking
unblocks all of that.
If we think ahead and you in this position, if you flat this, or if you call this raise, are you checking river or?
Oh, if you're Doug?
Yeah.
Oh, if he calls here, then he absolutely has to check river. He's sort of already given away the fact that he is uncomfortable with this. And instead he's just going to re-raise. Doug's like, nah, dude. Like, if you got it, you got it, but you're gonna have to play for everything. Oh, that's fantastic.
That's great.
Yeah.
Turn it over.
All right, Doug is gonna go ahead and push the aces over in front of Optimize.
What do you think of that raise?
The re-raise from Doug?
Yeah, the 3-bet re-raise on the turn.
Once in a while.
I think that
Sevens, that was bold.
if he is willing to play for all the chips, he should play it as a call and a check on the river to allow his opponent to bluff. Because when he re-raises, he basically allows all of the inferior hands to fold,
Right.
and all of the better hands to just be like, oh, sweet, we get all the money in right now. I don't even have to wait till the river.
Yep.
And so he allows his opponent to play perfectly when he puts in the third bet. And you just don't want to be doing that. I mean, like, there's not even an argument to be made for, like, denying equity or something, because if Optimize is just raising with a combo draw there, like what, we got Queen 10-10, Queen 10-10-9 with 2 diamonds. So let's say that he's got, I don't even know. I guess there's
Ace,
not a really
King
good
diamond,
combo
King
draw.
Jack diamond. So there's only 2, but it was a 3-bet
Yeah,
pot
exactly.
free, right?
But the Ace of Diamonds is already in Doug's hand, so there's just not
Right.
really a good selection of those.
Yeah.
But like, if there was ever some sort of diamond combination or something that you could try to target with a re-raise to put them in under pressure, like they're just going to put all the chips in. They're just not going to care. Like the pot's too big, they've committed too much. So a re-raise there, just it takes you into game theory disaster land, which is allow your opponent to play perfectly and you will always lose in the long run.
I guess that's also the unfortunate thing, though, if with the power of position, because he's out of position, he can't play or I guess Optimize gets to play relatively perfect on every street, whether he raised or not, or he gets called or not. Sorry.
Well, so I don't agree with that, because if Doug just calls there and then checks the river, like auto checks every river card, like Optimize could just be completely barking up the wrong tree. Like Doug can have pocket queens, he can have pocket tens. Like, yeah, those are relatively low probability events that he has those, but like, I mean, this is like a dream scenario. If Doug has pocket queens for queens full and his opponent raises him on the turn, of course you're just gonna call and check
Right.
him. Like, oh,
So,
please.
but on the river, Optimize could just check back a lot of his holdings after he's already done that raise on the turn, right?
Oh yeah, but now he's shifted gears from bluffing to giving up, and
Right.
that's fine too. But Aces is perfectly fine with winning that one on the river with no more chips going in. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like,
of course.
Aces are a very middling strength hand at that point, even though they're effing aces. All right, spicy one here. Has no chips go in on the flop for some stupid reason. Top and bottom pair for Kevin. Top
Madoogie
pair
board.
for Optimize. Quick check here from Optimize. Kevin should go for max value here. We'll go a little over half pot. This might actually be the right price for Optimize's exact holdings. Even that's too much. I was going to say, put a big chunky bet out there on the end to make it look like any of your queen 10, your 10-8 type shit has just missed and you're just trying to take it away. But
I think if a lead on the flop happened, you could get probably 3 streets of value, just because he checks flop and ace turns roll off. It's even worse for optimized to call up on the river.
That was your chance.
Yeah, I don't think there's 3 streets to be had with a kicker as weak as the 8.
Jack 8, right?
But certainly 2 streets was pretty reasonable.
You got scared.
We do have a couple of new faces here at the table. We've got Bad News and Magic joining us here for the last 15 minutes or so of the broadcast. There's Magic, there's Bad News.
Well,
Kiki's here.
straddled the 20, so we're gonna
A couple of 8s. We'll raise this up.
No,
you, bro. I got
it's 9. It's 9.
And nada, no takers.
You have to get a hand.
I think it was straddled to like 60, so we're gonna count 60. That was only like, so 60s.
Mike down 420. Not going to Taco Bell, not going to the pot shop. Nothing. Toast.
What?
All right, $10 straddle
It was
is
standard
on.
up till I raised. It was not standard. Even the flop, maybe that's not standard. Maybe.
Very colorful attire there for Bad News.
Well, that's where I'm gonna have to go, apparently.
You don't really wear hoodies ever for when you play poker, right? Are you a hoodie, glasses kind of person?
Not sunglasses, no, but I always, yeah, definitely wearing a hoodie. Whether or not I put the hood up is sort of dependent on the temperature of the room most of the time. But yeah, if I'm sitting right under a vent and AC is like blowing down on me, I'd put the hood up. Or if I'm up against a field where I feel like a little bit of extra coverage is warranted. You know, scrutinizing players that are really sort of trying to put all the pieces together.
Live read
can't
players.
Go wrong there, but yeah, the sunglasses thing, I mean, so I wear glasses, and so I don't have prescription sunglasses. Or rather, the ones that I do have are an old prescription that are sort of not the greatest. So I don't wear the sunglasses at the table. I also think it's kind of just, it's a little bit silly. You know, like, I mean, I get it, and it's fine. Like, you know, do whatever you're gonna do. There's like a whole bunch of people that wear masks. You know, not because they're worried about getting Ebola virus or whatever, but like they're trying to hide their face, and that's fine. Like, do what you're gonna do. But I do think that when you're just like completely covered up and you look like you're about to go like snowboarding or some shit, it's like, come on, bro. We're playing.
Yeah, I think you have to be playing at a very high level to where people will be reading your eyes and the action on your eyes.
Well, here's the thing that I say about it. I think that, like, at whatever level you're at, you can always be giving some information away.
Right.
And even against a relatively weak opponent, they could look over at you and see just your mannerism. And if it changes from the way that you were when you won a pot to now you're over there, like, not saying a word or whatever, like, they can just pick up on that. That's not that challenging.
Yeah, what are sunglasses going to do for that situation?
Well, sure. Well, here's what I was going to say, though, is by masking your own inability to, like, control your emotions and hide your tells, by just, like, covering it up with sunglasses and whatever, like, you're not advancing as, like, a more sophisticated poker player is my take on it.
Yeah,
it's like, if you can't sit there with a straight face and be able to bluff and value bet and look the same, then, like, yeah, you're kind of not, you're not progressing, you're not advancing, you're not taking yourself to the next level, and you're just, like, sort of living off of a crutch of having to hide behind sunglasses and a scarf and all this other shit.
This was a pretty sick hand. It, 3 ways to the river.
Yeah.
Bad News, gutter ball, nut straight, and then, or I guess second nut straight, and then Kiki. River's a nice little king high flush. Oh, and it checks through. Wow.
Oh, Kiki is gonna have to show this down begrudgingly. No one taking a stab at it. This is the problem with having a trappy style, where that's like your default is to trap, is that this happens to you a lot. You're like, oh, someone else was supposed to bet. It's like,
yeah, just bet your hand.
Bet your hand.
I did.
Bet your hand.
It was already in there for
I will say I've met a lot of like strong tournament players that just wear sunglasses, and I'm like, you really haven't developed. Like, there's a person that he shipped one of the monsters, and he just wears sunglasses and a hat, and I'm like, you really just can't, I guess, change or improve your I guess the psyche of it. So
Yeah, well, there's also a level of comfort, which, I mean, it's all still the same thing. Like, you know, I think we still have both the same sort of attitude about it, but the psyche of being behind sunglasses, I mean, it makes you feel safe, right? Like, you're
yeah,
sort of hidden. It almost feels like you're, like, crouching in the bushes and nobody knows you're there. And, you know, human beings have, you know, a very strong, like, sense of fight and flight and all of that, like, baked into our physiology. And so feeling safe when you're engaging in, you know, this sort of mental combat is a big boon. You know, I mean, I think that's why there's some strong players that wear masks and do the whole thing to try to hide their face. Like, they feel safer doing it. And, you know, it's a free country. People can do
the
whatever they
Vogel
want.
saying effect.
Like, yeah, Vogel saying, there you go. Like, the guy completely bundled up. Sorry, what did you say? Ooh, all right. So things are progressing quickly. This is our last hand of 2 card, and we will finish things off with a PLO bomb pot. So, gonna wrap things up here just maybe a little bit early. We did get started actually on time this time around, as we had all the players at the table on time, which is an unusual occurrence. So.
Are you gonna be playing poker into the Christmas weekend next week?
You know, I don't know exactly like what my plans are. I will certainly be playing the big tournament this weekend, and not going anywhere, not traveling back to Colorado or anything for Christmas. I was out there for Thanksgiving.
Set up live stream.
So, yeah, I'll still be around playing cards for sure. How about you? You going to go see family any place? Or sticking around
So the girlfriend's family is in Austin. We'll actually be in Austin for Christmas Saturday, Sunday.
Oh, cool.
So maybe I'll get in a session sometime out there. One of the days, one of the card rooms open. But other than that, just in Houston, probably play poker here and there, but relaxing for the most part going into the new year.
Sweet, man. Well, if you're up here in Austin and want to reach out, let me know.
Will do for sure.
Cool, cool. All right, here we go. One last hand. Going to be a PLO bomb pot. We'll see if somebody can make their fortunes turn around, or perhaps just pad the stack a little bit here at the end of the evening. Jesse going to sling out a couple of flops here. We'll take a look if he can get those cards to stop hugging each other. Queen 4 tray rainbow. King and a couple of 10s. All these hands scanned in, find out what we're working with. Nemo Claus here does have a 10. So does Bad News. First 2 hands we see have the 10s.
Slow start, too.
Never fun when you have Badoogie aces.
Yeah, not your favorite thing to look down at, especially when the board does not contain ace. Checks all the way through.
Oh,
King
wow.
of clubs, 9 of hearts. Nemo Claus here going to fill up now on the turn and bets a quarter. Bad News will make the call. Magic will make the call. Magic here with...
He has a clean flush draw to clubs.
Yeah. Rivers trip kings on top, which is the best hand. Nemo Claus here, looking at just a 7 of hearts out there on the end. Not a concerning card. So he'll bet the pot for 190, and Magic here going to look him up with the Trip Kings 9 kicker, which is good enough for half the pot. So these two players are going to hack this pot in half. Both profit about $60 a piece. And that is going to bring us to the end of the show. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This was a fantastic episode of 2-5 No Limit Texas Hold'em out of TCH Austin here on Thursday night. We do have a couple more shows coming at you before the holidays hit us, during which time TCH Austin is going to slow things down a little bit. We'll have a PLO stream mixed in, but we will have at least 1 day off. Sorry, 2 days off during the Christmas time. So for myself, for Andrew, for the staff here at TCH Austin, we want to thank you guys all for tuning in. Thank you very much for joining me here tonight, Andrew. This was
thanks,
a good
Aaron.
time.
Thanks, TCH, for having me. Hope to do some more in the future. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, happy holidays to everybody out there. We'll see you all next week.
We can leave that one on.
Take care. Good night.